What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 5 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
Tonight, we're going to be talking about what's been going on in training camp. Training camp, I believe, kicked off for both teams starting yesterday. And, the players, I think, reported about 2 days ago to press conferences, and the coaches sort of previewed, like a couple of the camp battles, player injuries. And today we're just going to jump into it. And we have breaking news. So we haven't been able to discuss it, previously, but the Raiders have signed veteran cornerback Marcus Peters. Mike, I will let you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm very happy. This was something that was being whispered here and there over the offseason. Mostly late into free agency, post-draft. It was like, oh, Marcus Peters is out there. He might get a visit soon. And then he visited in maybe April, maybe May. I think it was May. And nothing came out of it. And it was like, all right, maybe they're not going to sign him. And then the word came out last week that he was going to visit like the day, like you said, yesterday, the 26th or whatever, the day that training camp was starting. It was like, he's going to sign, and he had a workout. It was not just a visit. It was a workout. So the writing was on the wall for a while now. And, you look at his accolades. I didn't even realize how, prolific his career has been. He's a 4-time All-Pro. 2015 Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Was that when he was on the Ravens?
He was drafted, I want to say, by the
Chiefs.
I want to say the Chiefs, and then he went to the Rams, and then the Ravens. But I think since it's either 2015 or I think it is 2015, he has the most interceptions in the league. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the stat. So Raiders signed him to a 1-year deal, up to $5 million. I'm not exactly sure what the base is or anything like that yet, but I'll take it. I'll take a veteran who's savvy, who knows how to get it done, and he's a dog. He's one of those guys that's just gonna amp everybody up and go out there and get shit done. So I'm happy.
Not only that, but I like this signing for the Raiders too, because I feel like they really needed a veteran on defense. And Marcus Peters provides a lot of experience. He's been on a couple defenses, in the NFL already. He, like you said, has been an All-Pro player. I believe he's made a couple Pro Bowls. And then not only that, but he is a culture fit for the Raiders, I would say, because he grew up in Oakland. And I believe he went to McClemens High School. So he, obviously the Raiders are not in Oakland anymore, but, that was probably his team growing up. And I'm sure it's one of his childhood dreams to play for the Raiders. So yeah, when I see cool stuff like that, I just think about like when I was little and, how I wanted to play like, for the Niners or whatever, like, creating my player in Madden or,
Yeah.
playing for the San Francisco Giants, stuff like that. So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And
Absolutely.
then I think he fills a need. I think the Raiders needed, a cornerback, especially if you're going to be facing teams like the Chiefs and you got the Broncos, so maybe Peters can line up with Jerry Jeudy, but I think Peters is going to step into a role similar to what Richard Sherman stepped into when he signed with the 49ers back a couple years ago. And I believe that at the time of both of their signings, I want to say Sherman was also 30 years old and Marcus Peters is also 30 years old. So Sherman already knew the area because he went to Stanford. So it's like, I see the parallels with that. And I enjoyed Sherman's tenure with the Niners. So I think Peters going to the Raiders, I don't think it could be worse, and it could potentially even be better. So,
yeah. And I think, bring up Richard Sherman's a good example. I was actually about to bring up Casey Hayward, who came to the Raiders maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I think he was 30 years old around the time of his signing. And I didn't expect much of him coming off I want to say it was with the Chargers, but he came in and I wouldn't say he locked it down, but he made a difference, So I could see something maybe hopefully a little bit better out of Peters than, what we got from Casey Hayward. But Casey Hayward was a guy that I really liked for his time with the Raiders.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully that Marcus Peters, still has it in terms of like his physical ability, but even if he just has to be sort of in that role, I know we talked about it last time about having sort of a coach on the field. He can provide sort of like what Richard Sherman when he got up there with age was able to provide. And I think one of the reasons why Richard Sherman signed with the Niners was because in 2017, Garoppolo went to the 49ers and had success. And I know that Garoppolo, just came to the Raiders. So I wonder if Marcus Peters is all on board for Jimmy G. But with that, I want to move into our next topic, which is about Jimmy G. And so Jimmy Garoppolo has officially passed his physical and has been practicing with the team. So Mike, I will also let you talk about this. I'm going to switch the screen over to show Jimmy. I believe there's a clip of him passing it to Davante.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how quickly the mentality shifts when you get a little bit of positive news. And maybe everything surrounding Jimmy G was so negative that I was just super negative about it, right? From the get-go, we move on from Carr, and then let's just see this really quick here. I mean, this is nice.
Oh man, that is a familiar throwing motion. Oh, you know what? I saw that earlier, and I went, that's a beautiful ball."
Yeah.
Like
No, yeah.
Jimmy throws a nice football. I'll say that about Jimmy, and it seems like his teammates really like him. I know Max Crosby said that Jimmy's like already talking shit in camp, and like he just like loves the dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my point about the whole negativity and positivity, I mean, it's like, we signed Jimmy G, and it was like all the Raider fans were hoping was for something bigger and better. I mean, there weren't any free agents really out there that were that much bigger and better. But I think a lot of guys wanted us to draft somebody this year, maybe. And
what about Sam Darnold?
Yeah, no.
Apparently Darnold's going to be QB2, according to Chris Sims. So
we'll see. Yeah. For the Niners, of course, but he signs, and it's like, okay, proven winner, but like, look at the Niners teams he's played for. Like, is he really going to do that with the Raiders? I don't know. He is, I would say, not a better quarterback than Carr, but there are things that Jimmy G does that maybe Carr doesn't do as well, whereas Carr does things that Jimmy G just has not done in his career, which I will get into in a second. I want to get into that just a little bit. But
I I think Carr pushes the ball downfield better than Jimmy does. I don't
Yeah.
think Jimmy really looks to push the ball downfield. And I think that might be, a conflict with Davante Adams a little bit because Davante's sort of the deep threat receiver. But,
Yeah.
Jimmy can make up in areas where maybe Michael Mayer or Hunter Renfrow might start carrying more of the load.
Right.
And sort of the shorter passing game. Josh Jacobs might be a little bit more involved in the passing game with checkdowns if assuming Jacobs is back for this season.
Right. So I want to give a quick shout out to this YouTube channel called Raider Films.
Mm-hmm.
They put out pretty good YouTube content. And they just recently put out a video about Jimmy G today, in respect to these videos that have come out of him. So just really quick, 1 second here. I want to just give some stats. In the video, Raider Films gives some very specific stats that I actually was audibly gasping, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I didn't realize it was that bad. So I'll get to that. We're going to talk about completion percentage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And a little, yeah. So Derek Carr, in his career, 64.6% completion percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy G, in his career, 67.6. Now, again, like you said, Derek Carr is more prone to maybe pushing it down the field compared to Jimmy G maybe not doing that. So that'll help him with his completion percentage, right? It also helps when your receivers aren't dropping the ball as much as Raiders receivers were in Derek Carr's time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to fault Derek Carr too much on that. Let's do a couple specific seasons, 2021 and 2022. Derek Carr in 2021, 68.4% completion percentage in 17 games started. Bear in mind, I think Derek Carr had like 4,800 yards that year. A lot, like almost 5,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably maybe his best season. Jimmy G in 2021, 68.3%, just about the same in 15 games started for the Niners.
With a couple injuries too.
Yeah. And then 2022, Derek Carr, 60.8% completion percentage in 15 games started. The 2 games that he didn't start were the end of the year because he was benched.
Because of the contract.
Yeah. Or
they didn't want him to get injured, right?
Yeah,
so they could preserve his trade value, and it didn't really work out. But
yeah, or at the very least,
I mean,
if he got
his
injured,
money didn't become fully guaranteed.
Yeah. 2022, so 60.8% for Carr. 2022. 2022 in 10 games started for Jimmy G, 67.2%. So that's a little better than Derek Carr. Now, these are the stats that Raider Films gave. In the red zone, okay, this has been an ongoing issue for the Raiders for a little while now. I believe this is over their careers. Derek Carr inside the 20 has a 42.11% completion percentage. So sub 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Inside the 10-yard line, Derek Carr's completion percentage is 33.33%. A third of his passes are getting caught. The other 2/3 are not. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy G, inside the 20, 60.47%. Inside the 10, 60.9%. So Raider fans have been complaining for a while now about red zone efficiency. Jimmy G has that. Derek Carr does not.
Jimmy G had that. He had that. So I think one of the reasons why his numbers are so high in the red zone is because of the supporting cast he had and the play caller he had. It's no question that Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller. I give Kyle Shanahan a lot of shit sometimes because sometimes he just calls like stupid plays or unfolds in like stupid moments. But I'm not talking about Kyle right now. Jimmy definitely benefited from the team that he had, and that's not to say that he can't operate with the weapons that the Raiders have. Ideally, if the Raiders are able to get Davante back, if they're able to, clearly they're going to get Davante back. He's under contract. if they're able to have Davante, have Josh Jacobs back, um, have Hunter
Renfrow,
Renfrow, who's shifty as a slot receiver. If Michael Mayer
Jacoby
develops,
Myers.
honestly, Austin Hooper isn't that bad of a tight end either. Jacoby Myers as well, and he played in that Patriots system. So Josh McDaniels has won Super Bowls, as an offensive coordinator.
Mm,
So Jimmy should be, in theory, be able to step into this offense and, like you said, improve that red zone efficiency. But I will say that the numbers were so high because Jimmy was having the benefit of having Kyle Shanahan in that supporting cast. He had George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, even towards, well, you were naming numbers from 2021. So it was Elijah Mitchell as the running back, and
mm,
Mitchell's a pretty good running back too. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah.
I mean, here's my other thing that's just interesting to me, and this was something that Raider Films brought up in the YouTube video. I just hadn't really thought of this. I had, but like I didn't really think too hard about it. He brought up the point that, you know, back in, I don't know if it was 2016, 2017, there was that rumor that the Patriots wanted to move on from Brady and they wanted
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy G to be the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was Josh McDaniels' offense. So, and then, it's rumored that Tom Brady said no to that and may have gone to Robert Kraft or something like that and told them don't do that, and then they ended up winning another Super Bowl or two or whatever happened, so it worked out. But it sounded to me like if it wasn't Belichick's guy, Jimmy G was Josh McDaniels' guy. Josh McDaniels was in charge of the offense. So I
He might have
mean,
been both of their guys. Honestly, I heard he was Belichick's guy, but clearly he's also McDaniels' guy because Jimmy's over here in Vegas now. So,
yeah. And bear in mind, I still look at Jimmy G like a bridge quarterback, but I think if health permitting, for not just him but the entire team, I can see success with Jimmy Garoppolo. I
mhm,
think what it really depends on is the defense's improvement and the offensive line. I
mhm.
think that's what it really depends on, because I don't expect a crazy, throw it deep offense with Jimmy G, but I mean, you have Davante Adams, you have a couple gadget receivers that are pretty fast, like Philip Dorsett, and maybe Trey Tucker develops into something. But for the most part, I see a West Coast offense, essentially dink and dunk, where Jimmy G can just excel, and be
I
very efficient.
I think you bring up a great point about the importance of the offensive line and the defense because where Jimmy has been able to have a lot of success in his career has been the Niners holding teams to obviously not scoring so many points against them, and Jimmy has shown that he can operate an offense. Like, he's a serviceable quarterback. You can win games with him, and I think
Mm,
at this point in time, I don't think Raider fans are expecting Super Bowl. They just want to win some fucking games. You
yeah,
know,
I
I,
really
you guys just want to make the playoffs. Like,
exactly.
I
That's
know,
where
I
I'm at right
know
now.
every team wants a Super Bowl,
Yeah,
right? Don't get me wrong. Every team wants a Super Bowl, but you guys just need to, like, I mean, baby steps. If Jimmy can bring in, like, sort of establish like a winning mentality and
yeah,
show whoever's the next person how to run the offense efficiently, then what more can you ask out of them,
yeah,
really?
exactly. I'll finish with with the whole comparison to Carr and Jimmy G. I will give this to Carr, not like reluctantly or anything. I'm just stating facts.
Uh-huh.
Um, because I'm definitely I'm not gonna become like a Jimmy G truther and like a Carr hater. Like I love and appreciate Carr for what he was and everything. Um, I just my whole point at the beginning was it's funny how I get 1 to 2 days of seeing Jimmy G on the field. He passes his physical. All this time it was like, dude, we might not have a quarterback. Then he passes his physical, and it's like, oh, okay, everything's fine. Let's just breathe. Everything's fine. And then you see him on the field, like this video here, and it's like, okay, yeah, like he is competent. That's right. Like it's okay, you know. And then you hear Davante Adams and Max Crosby talking about Jimmy G in their press conferences, and it's like they clearly, to me, it's clear that they like him. They like what he brings to this team. They like what he brings to the team's mentality and culture, and I like what I'm hearing so far. But as far as Derek Carr and Jimmy G, 2019 was Jimmy G's best season as far as pass yards, 3,978 yards. And then let's see, Derek Carr's, like I said, 2021, really quick here just to get it right. 2021, he had 4,804 yards, so 4,804. So the one thing, well, not the one thing, but the major thing with Derek Carr relative to Jimmy G is Jimmy G, he's not going to throw for as many yards as Derek Carr is. And maybe that works in this offense if they plan on, having Jacobs get the ball 400 times again. We'll see, right? But I don't know. I look at Jimmy G as a good game manager, a good leader on the team, and like you said, he has that winning mentality.
So. I'm very interested to see if Jimmy could ever excel in like a just drop back and like, pass first offense, because I kind of like, before he came to the Niners, I got that vibe from him. I'm like, damn, Jimmy can really sling it. And then like, I sort of was a Jimmy G truther after 2017, and I even after 2019, but 2020 is like when I started to like snap back to reality of like just about how good he is. And I'm holding on to the whole Jimmy G truther thing because you mentioned it. If Jimmy G balls out this season and takes the Raiders to the playoffs, or you know what? If they win week 1, I'll tell you what, I'll bust out my Jimmy G jersey and I'll wear it, for that stream after week 1. Yeah. And if I don't, it will be because Trey Lance starts and completely lights it up week 1.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll bust out that jersey, but we'll even see if either of those things even happen. But as we can see in this graphic right here, we've got, that's been playing this whole time that we've been speaking. We got Jimmy G passing it off to Davante Adams. I would like to pass off the topic to Davante Adams because, there is a report that apparently Davante Adams is going to be requesting a trade pretty soon to the Jets. I'm going to pull up the tweet. So this is from at MLF Football. I guess, they have a huge following on Twitter, and this started blowing up about 3 hours ago. And this says, report, there will soon be stories that Davante Adams wants out from the Las Vegas Raiders, and that he will want to join the New York Jets and his former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And then I guess it's Craig Carton Live. And
yeah, I was going to say, click on that. I'm curious.
So apparently he's got his own show on FS1. But I don't know, he doesn't have any clips, or I didn't necessarily find any tweets where he said it directly.
Go down a little bit. Go down.
This is just Dalvin Cook to the Jets.
Oh, it's Dalvin Cook. Okay.
Yeah, they're talking about
he must
Dalvin
be
Cook.
a Jets guy or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
If he's a Jets guy, that's kind of a homer thing to do, Because if I'm being honest with you, this doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. It's the Aaron Rodgers thing all over again or whatever, but like, from what I took from Davante Adams leaving the Packers, it was Davante Adams deciding, I don't want to be on this team too long when I know that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be here another 2 years, and he was only there another year, and I think Davante Adams' biggest thing was that he wanted to be closer to family who live in like the Bay Area or maybe somewhere in California. So him deciding to just, I want to go to the Jets. I want to go to New York. that makes zero sense to me. As far as for the Raiders, it makes zero sense because I want to say the Jets gave up their first round pick for next year's draft to get Aaron Rodgers. So what are we going to get? Right?
Mhm.
Probably not anything great. We gave up a first and second for Davante Adams. I want that back
Mhm.
if we're going to be trading him, but I don't want to trade him. So, and I don't know. This feels like a non-story to me. This just feels like, a rumor.
What if you could get a guy like Garrett Wilson? Or you guys send off I mean, this is just like I didn't even think about numbers or anything. You guys send off Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams, and you get Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall.
I would take that, but the Jets would absolutely not. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, Brees Hall's coming off that knee injury, and I
Yeah,
mean,
but Brees Hall is on a rookie contract still. Josh Jacobs is going through everything he's going through because he's coming off of his rookie contract.
mhm. Yeah, but
So they
Davante
have
is
to
better than Garrett Wilson. I mean, who
right
knows for how
now.
much longer? But
Exactly. Garrett Wilson is clearly on the upper, going towards the upper echelon of wide receivers in the league.
mhm.
So it just doesn't make sense. And then they paid all that money to the Jets, paid all that money to go get Alan Lazard. They have this first round pick, offensive rookie of the year last year in Garrett Wilson. I can't place any other receivers on their team, but I mean that's two. That's a number one. That's a number two to me.
Mhm.
At wide receiver. I don't get it on any sides. I don't even get it for Davante Adams, other than I want to go back to Aaron Rodgers, but okay, he has I want to say 4 more years on his deal, his current deal. Maybe he restructures with the Jets, whatever, but Aaron Rodgers just restructured his deal so that now it's a 2-year deal with the Jets. So okay, he's going to play for 2 years, not just 1 year. Okay. Suddenly Davante Adams changes his mind about how he feels about all that. I thought he wanted like a little bit. I mean, I guess. Well, yeah, he wanted security, and then he came to the Raiders, and Derek Carr just got a 3-year deal, but it turns out it was just a 1-year deal. I get if that would upset him. That was his buddy from college, totally, right?
Mhm.
But I don't know. It's tough. I don't know where Davante Adams' head is at with everything. I
Mhm.
know he wants to win, but I also know he wants to be close to family. So
So
I don't see it.
let me entertain it. Okay. I'm not saying that this is what's going on. I doubt that there would be like, oh, report, we're going to start hearing about this. Like, it's, I, I mean, to be honest, I haven't heard from, I didn't know that guy existed, like the source or whatever. So, I mean, rumors, you can always take it, with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
But let's entertain the possibility that Davante Adams honestly didn't know what Aaron Rodgers was going to do, if he was going to retire, if he was going to leave Green Bay. So obviously he didn't want to, re-sign with Green Bay if he didn't know that Aaron was going to be there. So, I mean, what does he decide to do? He decides to team up with his best friend from college and decides to play for his hometown team. Didn't he grow up a Raider fan?
Yeah.
So, Davante Adams goes there, and then they get rid of his best friend, and then all of a sudden we've been hearing that Davante's been unhappy, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand the direction that the franchise has taken. So, I've heard that been reported, right? Or at
Mm-hmm.
least been rumored. And now that Garoppolo has passed his physical and everything, and Aaron Rodgers has been it almost seems like revitalized with the Jets a little bit. Who's to say that he isn't like, you know what? I'm kind of cool with my time with the Raiders. Let me go back, or I want to pair up with Aaron before he calls it quits. And it seems like the Jets are trying to make a run at the Super Bowl. Why don't I try to win a Super Bowl with Aaron? That's
Mm-hmm.
just me like entertaining this idea. I'm not saying that I believe it. I'm not saying I'm not. I also find it interesting. they asked Davante Adams yesterday what I think it was like what he likes most about Jimmy Garoppolo, and the only thing that he could say was his eagerness to learn. Like Jimmy, I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong. This is his 10th year in the NFL. What more does he have to learn? Like, he's not like a young rookie or anything. Like maybe he's like relearning McDaniel's system, or he's just trying to learn from a coach that he hasn't had before. But
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure that Davante Adams, if he was really invested, in Garoppolo or really cared about him, I'm sure he could say something a little bit better than that. That's going to be his starting quarterback this year, or is it? So that to me is just a little bit interesting. And I always find it funny, like nobody ever compliments Jimmy's like ability to play football all the time. They always talk about like, the intangibles or, the stuff off the field, like, oh, he's just such a nice person, things like that. The only thing that I've heard people talk about is you mentioned his red zone efficiency, and also people talk about his quick release. So
well, I just think if this were ongoing, wouldn't you think that Davante Adams would be holding out right now? Don't you think he might be acting a little different? Because I mean, I watched the press conference last night and he seemed fine as usual. I mean, he's a very great professional, so maybe he's just putting on a little, professional face. I don't know, but he doesn't seem like a guy that's that upset. Like, he's got the contract, he's getting paid, he's playing for the team that he grew up loving, and I don't know. Going to the Jets doesn't make too much sense to me. I get Rodgers, I get all that, and I would understand if he wanted to go to the Jets. I would, for Aaron Rodgers or whatever, but like, it just wouldn't make sense for the Raiders. So the only thing that he can do to make it happen is to make them, which is to hold out, right? To make life miserable for them. And he has not done that. So I
mean, that would be like if you wanted to take it to like an Antonio Brown extreme, like, oh, I want to be free. I don't see Davante Adams as that type of dude. But, if I'm being honest, I feel like the Raiders finally, ever since Garoppolo passed his physical, you mentioned earlier that they kind of have like a positive momentum going a little bit. Like it seems like things have really turned around. Obviously, they've still got the Jacobs thing going on, but you're actually seeing Garoppolo on the field, and I think there's people who are sort of warming up to that idea, and it's not just sort of like a what the hell is this?
Yeah, I think if anything, he's on like day 2 of catching passes from Garoppolo. Like, if he really had an issue with Garoppolo, wouldn't it take a little bit of time for him to be like, oh, I really don't like the way this guy throws the ball. I want out of here. Like I don't know. I think he should just play for the Raiders. I just don't see it.
I mean, it makes the most sense. He signed a contract and he wanted to come here. It's like, okay, play it out. If you didn't agree with the steps that this team was taking, then you should have carefully examined. It was.
Yeah,
it was sort of like
if anything,
Carr's last stand. It wasn't like it wouldn't have been a shock to anybody that like, oh, Carr might get replaced in a couple years. It's like it's the NFL. People's careers don't last forever. The fact that Carr lasted on the Raiders for so long, I mean, it's just like, I mean, Carr was good, and I don't think he was like solely the problem. But the quarterback always gets all the blame, like when the team isn't doing good. So
he was on and off. I just think if
did we lose Mike? Oh, okay. You cut out for a second.
Okay. I think when the trade was happening, you would think he'd really look into everything. So he would look into Josh McDaniels. He would look into like, okay, what is Derek Carr's contract situation? Yada, yada, yada. Like, wouldn't you think thing he might have the biggest issue with is the coach's play calling, history. I don't know. My biggest thing is he gets traded to us. He signs the big contract with us, like highest paid receiver at the time, I want to say. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me for him to be demanding a trade when he basically said, "Oh, this is the perfect scenario. I'm close to home. Derek Carr, blah blah blah." I get that Derek Carr's not there anymore, but I don't think Jimmy G is a big fall from that tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jimmy's your best friend now. Okay. Stop thinking about Aaron. That was high school. Okay.
Yeah,
He's moved on.
Aaron is an old man.
Aaron's with Garrett now. Okay.
I mean,
You're with Jimmy now. Think about Jimmy.
Yeah. I guess it'd be a similar scenario because Jimmy G shouldn't last past his current contract, which is 3 years. Aaron Rodgers definitely isn't lasting past the 2 years, I don't think. So,
I don't think so.
In 2 or 3 years, I think both the Jets and Raiders will have young, new quarterbacks. So pick your poison. Do you want to just stay on the contract close to home, blah, blah, blah? Or do you really want to go back for two more years with Rodgers? The only thing that makes it make sense to me, like 31, the only thing that makes sense to me is that the Jets have a very up-and-coming defense, and they really, on paper, look like a team that should get to the playoffs and should win playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it for me.
Or maybe Adams wants to be on Max, the streaming service for Hard Knocks. Maybe he just wants to be a part of that.
You never know. I doubt it, though.
Yeah. No, I doubt it. But I think, we kind of said what we had to say about Davante Adams. I think he'll probably stay with the Raiders. I don't really give this that much merit. I was willing to entertain that idea, but what do you want to say?
I will guarantee you the next time he has a press conference, I don't know if he'll actually get asked about it because I don't know how big this rumor will get. But if he gets asked about it, he will say something along the lines of like, "Come on, that's a non-story. Like, seriously, move on." And yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, what this probably is this is a Jets centric, media thing, media source, the Craig Carton guy. Yeah,
Bear
Craig
in mind,
Carton.
Yeah.
So he's probably just entertaining an idea to get Jets fans talking. It's gotten us talking.
Mm-hmm. Last thing, the very beginning of the report says there will soon be stories that Davante Adams wants out. You know why there will soon be stories? Because of this fucking tweet right here. So yeah, you just created a whole shitstorm.
Yeah.
That's why there will soon be stories.
And we have added to that shitstorm. So I hope you're happy, Craig Carton, or Carton, or however the fuck you pronounce it. I hope you're happy. No. All right. Moving on to another receiver that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Hunter Renfrow. And there was a rumor, I believe, last week that came out. I don't have the tweet pulled up, but there was a rumor that Renfrow's roster spot is in serious jeopardy. I don't know why it would be. I think Renfrow is a much better receiver than the guys that maybe the Raiders have behind them, but maybe it's a business decision. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I kind of want to pull up his contract right now. I get it only because this has been an ongoing rumor this entire offseason. I mean, last season he got injured. He was fumbling the ball. He wasn't having the strongest season. And I think if you follow in the footsteps of Darren Waller, a guy who was often injured last season, and there were rumors that he was upsetting the coaching staff because of his inability to get on the field or unwillingness to get on the practice field. This is the type of coaching staff that really believes that the best ability is availability. So if you're not going to be available, you're not going to be on this team. Now, I don't see that being an issue for Renfrow. I think he just got a little batch of bad luck last year. I think he had a rib injury or something like that. But I don't know. I think when you consider that Jimmy G's the quarterback and just the offense that Josh McDaniels has always ran with guys like Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola and Wes Welker, I think Hunter Renfrow follows right in those footsteps and
I
is
think he's like
perfect
the
for this
perfect
offense.
mold of like one of those kinds of players.
Yeah, so I don't see why, other than his play from last season or his contract that was signed, back when Mike Mayock was the GM. So I
Mm-hmm.
can understand how Ziegler comes in and he looks at all the contracts and goes, "Oh, whoa, Hunter Renfrow, 2-year, $32 million contract, so averaging around $16 million a year." And
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to pay Josh McDaniels how they don't want to pay Josh Jacobs how much, you know? Well, this could be part of the reason why is because, well, we're paying this slot receiver that didn't play much, and when he did play, he wasn't crazy spectacular last season for us. We're paying him $16 million a year.
I would try
That's
and
like,
restructure him if I were the Raiders.
yeah, that makes sense. Um,
But like you said, his performance last season kind of dipped. So maybe they're like, putting pressure on him. It's like, are you going to be healthy this upcoming season? Uh, but I mean, they should clear up some cap space to try to get Jacobs back.
yeah, I, I, well, we'll get to Jacobs in a little bit. I want to say I saw on Twitter, and I should have screenshotted it or something. I want to say that Hunter Renfro's contract is like maybe the 15th or 16th overall contract as far as average per year of all receivers in the league. And Davante Adams is like the first or second highest average per year of all receivers in the league. So, we know that Davante Adams is worth it, right? But is Hunter Renfrow worth paying another top 20 average per year contract in the league for your slot receiver who is not your number one, but he might not even be your number two, depending on how Jacoby Myers goes this season. Um,
If you
so
asked me if I would rather have Renfrow at that number or Jacobs at that number, I would choose Jacobs. So if they do have to move on from Renfrow, I mean, I don't see it as a good thing, like football team wise, but business wise, I could see it's like, yeah, they're offloading that cap, the cap number. But ideally, I think they should try and restructure him because I think he's a pretty good player, or they should
mm,
try and trade him. So I see
yeah,
the rumor that his spot is in serious jeopardy.
yeah,
But what are they going to replace him with? Who are they going to replace him with?
yeah. Oh, I mean, well, consider the fact that they drafted Trey Tucker in the third round, who was built to be a slot receiver. You know, more of a gadget receiver than Renfrow is, a more of a possession receiver. But maybe that's their guy. I don't know. As far as the average per year, I was a little off. It's 20th of all receivers in the league. This is per.
Still, still, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. This is per Tristan Kuhn on Twitter. KUHN. Okay,
Okay.
he is a great follow. Okay, at KUHNTRISTEN. I'm not repeating his last name again. Uh,
No
yeah.
worries.
It might be
You're fine.
actually it might be Kun, but anyways,
No, I mean, I think it is Kuhn. KUHN.
correct. So yeah, but I think that would be the main reason why is they're trying to offload his contract. I don't know what his guarantees are like, all that stuff. So I remember possibly seeing that if he were cut or traded post June 1st, which obviously it is now, it's July, it might actually not hurt the Raiders so bad. So where I'm at right now is if they were to have wanted to cut him, they would have by now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe they are looking into trading him. But I don't know. I see him fitting so well with the team, and it's like they already went through the offseason. They signed all their contracts. They did everything they went about doing in free agency and such. Okay, yeah, you just signed a guy like Marcus Peters. Is there really anybody else left on the market that's
that you'd
worth?
want to save that cap for? Maybe they're
Yeah,
just trying to delegate the cap and like, have the cap space like, carry over to the next year.
it's possible. Yeah, and I do like the idea of restructuring, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else that you want to say about, Renfro spot or?
No, I mean, as far as the last topic we were talking about with like Davante Adams, it's like if Davante
Uncertainty at the
Adams wants,
receiver position.
yeah, just overall, but if Davante Adams actually wanted out, like, how dumb would we look if we got rid of Renfrow? And then it was like, oh, Davante Adams is forcing a trade. It's like, well, enjoy Jacoby Myers as your wide receiver one.
Yeah. That would
So,
be such a disaster.
yeah.
Like they would have three players. They would have three players that like are completely like unknowns. Is Jimmy going to have this weapon? That would just be bad. And
Yeah.
if that's the case, that they're not going to have any of those three or not have at least one of those three, it's like, or at least Davante, right? If you're not going to have at least Davante, it's like, it just makes it a whole lot worse. But since you don't have anything else to say, I have a theory about it. Perhaps they just can't afford Hunter Renfrow because Tom Brady is unable to purchase his portion of the Raiders.
Well, it's not quite like that. I think you have the tweet. Let's read it.
Okay. Let me put this up here. You like that transition though, huh?
Not really. No. Listen, I know there have been lots of rumors about Mark Davis not being able to like afford contracts like Khalil Mack, but it's not. I don't think it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
All right. Are you able to read it, or you want me to read it?
I am able to read it, and I'll just note also like now that they're in Vegas, it's like a completely different ball game. But anyways, report: Tom Brady acquiring a portion of the Raiders could potentially not happen after all, per Mike Florio. A source tells Florio that a recent no equity rule that the league passed complicates Tom Brady's effort to acquire a portion of the team. In quotes. During last week's special meeting to approve the sale of the Commanders from Daniel Snyder to Josh Harris, Raiders owner Mark Davis spoke passionately against the proposed rule, explaining that he had planned to employ Brady as part of the deal for Brady to buy a piece of the team. The rule passed over Davis's concerns. Now that Davis won't be able to both employ Brady and to sell Brady equity in the team, that could set the transaction back to square one, and it could potentially derail it altogether.
Oof.
So, I mean, the biggest thing that I take out of this, other than obviously, oh, it might not happen now, is Brady was going to have a role. He was going to have a job with the Raiders.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, the legendary bowl cut.
Sorry, I didn't know you could see that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was something I was curious about was like, will Brady have a role? Will he just kind of, look at this as a investment, or will he actually do some things for this team? And that's looking like that's what it was supposed to be. So now if this actually does get derailed, I'm going to be a little upset because I want the GOAT to help out,
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, did he post? Is there a link to? Well, I guess there is a link. I'll read it later. But did they recently pass a rule that you can't be? Well, I guess that's what it says. But why would they pass that rule?
No equity rule. I don't know.
I mean, if it was something that was allowed before, I mean, Tom Brady owning the part of the Raiders is like, it is one of the. Hold on, let me tell this guy, get the fuck out of here.
Oh, Wow.
The GOAT
Well,
Mahomes. No, it's okay. You can be commenting. I don't care. But
thank you for the comment.
yeah, thank you for the comment, but I don't agree.
Yes,
The Chiefs broke my heart a couple years ago.
and
Going back to
as a Raider, as
going
a
back to
Raider
the whole
fan,
Brady thing. As a Raider
yeah.
fan, what?
Well, I don't like the Chiefs, and I'm currently very jealous of the Chiefs. So I'll give you that. And
I'm very
Mahomes is the
jealous of the Chiefs. I'm very jealous
Mah-
of the Chiefs too. I got distracted because I saw the comments just like continue to pile up. So
he's like,
we
get the fuck
appreciate your
out of here.
comments. We appreciate you checking out the video, but the Chiefs can kick rocks. Um, but Brady buying part of the Raiders is like, I mean, it was like super huge news. You don't hear a lot of like, I guess, minority owners purchasing part of the teams. So if this was allowed before, if you were able to be employed, why would they just create a new rule, right? That would offset Brady being able to own the Raiders, unless the owners don't want Brady to be in,
Right.
which doesn't
Well,
make sense. I mean, unless
uh,
maybe they want him to be like involved in like national, national media, stuff like that, involved in maybe NFL headquarters rather than just with the Raiders, or
so
if
this
this is just another like screw you to the Davis family.
you never know. I'm assuming that when the news came out that Brady was going to buy a stake in the Raiders, or however you want to label it, maybe some owners perked their heads and said, "Whoa, wait a second." I don't know. Um, Here's what I have here on. This is apparently from CBS Sports. According to the Sports Business Journal, NFL owners actually voted just last week, and I don't know. This was 13 hours ago. NFL owners actually voted just last week to put a ban on giving ownership equity to players or team employees. So the point of this is that, he was going to be an employee. He was going to work for the Raiders. So now that can't happen.
And
The
they just passed this when? Sorry, I missed that part.
This rule was passed on July 20th, a week ago, the same day that the owners approved the sale of the Commanders to Josh Harris. So, to me, it sounds like this is either in response to Dan Snyder and the Commanders sale,
Mhm.
or it's in response to Brady potentially buying the Raiders, which was not going to be voted on yet, or however that process goes out. So, maybe this is part of that. I don't know. Or you know what? It says, sorry, just last week to put a ban on giving ownership equity to players or team employees. So I mean, the whole thought process of, oh, could Brady play for the Raiders? Well, now he can't if he owned part of the team, you know. And then I think this is kind of different, but I was thinking the other day, like, how is Brady gonna like own part of a franchise in the NFL and then go over to Fox and commentate and be an announcer for regular season games? Like, don't you think he might
That
say
would be
some
a
nice
conflict.
things?
Yeah, that would be a
Yeah.
conflict of interest.
So I was thinking about that the other day, like, I don't know how that would work, but I mean, I've heard about Peyton Manning saying he doesn't want to commentate. He doesn't want to commentate yet or whatever because he doesn't want to talk negatively about players that he played with because
Mhm.
he just wouldn't want to. If he played alongside, let's just say, Wes Welker was still playing, like he wouldn't want to say a negative thing about him, you know.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's all interesting. It, I guess in actuality, this upsets me because yeah, I would have liked to have seen Tom Brady as an employee for the Raiders, uh, but I don't know.
I
I
mean, if
mean,
he's a minority owner, why can't he just like make decisions and whatnot?
well, I
Like, why
think that's
does
the key is that he's the minority owner. So I don't know if when you're a minority owner, all you get is the financial aspect to it, but you can't make decisions. I don't know. Or
Well, what I think maybe it's trying to protect against is people buying a stake in the team and then also getting paid, getting on that payroll for the team. So like Brady would probably be collecting a check aside from the
True.
The investment.
True. Yeah, that's probably part of it. Yeah.
So like if Brady was a minority owner, like can't you just do, whatever you want? It's like with the Warriors, I think they have multiple owners, and I think Joe Lacob is top dog, but I wouldn't be surprised if the other owner or owners have some sort of say in the team. I mean, or it might just be a situation where they just collect their investment. Like,
yeah, I think if they were to have any say, they would have to go to the majority owner, though. Like they could try to have a say, but as long as that majority owner has majority, he can do whatever he wants.
Well, I would think that Mark Davis would be under a mutual understanding that, like, all right, Tom, you're going to be in here. This is what you're going to be responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I don't know exactly what the rule prohibits or is going to prohibit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Brady. We'll see if maybe they can figure out a new terminology to him purchasing the Raiders, or not purchasing the Raiders, but buying a stake or whatever he does. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see how this unfolds. I still think, I mean, if this is the case and it's going to complicate it, I think the deal's dead in the water, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think Brady is just probably going to, set sail onto his Fox contract, and maybe later down the line he'll buy stake in like another team or whatever. But
Possibly, I think it's probably not often that stakes and teams become available, especially stakes that like an ex-player can afford. I know he's a little different because he's had so much branding and whatnot, but I don't know. It's tough.
yeah, I mean, this is Tom Brady. Like,
Yeah,
he's he's probably one of the most well-recognized players of all time. Like everybody knows Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Even little kids. I mean, maybe not like super young anymore, but
yeah.
But
I think
South Park, they even made an episode about how pure Tom Brady's shit is. Okay, everybody knows about Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Brady, in relation to Mark Davis, is they both own or part own the Las Vegas Aces, and that's where kind of all this stems from. Is like they wanted to continue to work together in an ownership, sort of way. So I think that's what led him toward the Raiders. So I don't. Hopefully, he wants to do something to work it out, but again, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see how that unfolds. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We got a couple comments that we're going to take. So Jefe KC says, I understand Chiefs going to a lot of Super Bowls. It's a great time to be a Chiefs fan. I would say right now is probably the best time in your guys' franchise history to be a Chiefs fan. I hope that one day the Niners can be as fun to watch as that again. But
as dominant. Yeah, I'd love to see the Raiders just once in my life be as dominant as the Chiefs are right now. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Niners were more dominant like back in the 80s, but that was before my time.
Yeah. But again, thank you for the comment.
Yeah. I don't like this comment, though.
Yeah, never mind. I take it back.
Mahomes owns the Raiders and the Niners, but don't worry, we have another comment here where it's just, not enough rings to get on our level, so the Niners are greater. So,
yeah, I want to. Well, I better fact check before I get this wrong, but I want to say right now the Chiefs and Raiders are tied.
I think they're tied at 3.
All-time Super Bowl wins.
But it's okay, Mike. We'll let you borrow one of our rings, and we'll still have more.
That's cool. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll change that soon.
No,
someday.
But like we said, Jefe Casey, we appreciate you checking out the video, even though we don't like your comments. Okay.
I just want to bring up one thing too before we switch the next topic. On my phone, Twitter is Twitter, but I noticed when you're on Twitter or whatever, it's X. So like, what is going on?
So
They switched it,
Elon,
or
yeah, they're going to rebrand. It's not going to be Twitter anymore. It's going to be X.
so is it just on what's the term for like not mobile, but on like PC
Well,
or whatever?
no, they're going to switch it on mobile too.
But right now, it's only on PC that it's
I mean,
X.
I think some people, like if you update your app, I think it updates to X.com. Real quick, I do like this comment from Hefe. He said Trey Lance might break out this year. I really hope he does, and I feel that way too. As long as he gets the opportunity to, if he plays.
Fa, what do you think of Jimmy G? Is he going to break out or?
He says Mahomes trained Lance, so you might do something. Yeah, you might do something Niners. So yeah, I mean that is true. Mahomes did work out with Lance. They both share the same quarterback coach now, Jeff Christensen. So Mike, did you see any of the videos of like Lance working out with Mahomes and Christensen or no?
I didn't see the videos, but I did see the recent video or pictures of Lance's new mechanics, where he's more like here when he's about to throw instead of like down here.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just want to say real quick, I love Mahomes. I don't want you to get that wrong. I love Mahomes. I wish he was on the Niners. That's all.
yeah, I wish Mahomes was
He's
on
one
the
of the best
Raiders.
quarterbacks I've ever seen. So
Yeah, I can't really get mad at greatness like that. Like I've said, I think he's like the Steph Curry of football. So
absolutely.
yeah.
So we're gonna move on to our next topic. Josh Jacobs is unlikely to report to training camp anytime soon. This was a report that I believe came out last week or just a couple days ago, right as training camp was about to begin. I think Josh Jacobs was in the parking lot with Max Crosby,
Yeah.
and they couldn't get a deal done. So Jacobs just decided to pack it up, and he's not going to practice.
Yeah, he's holding out, and what's interesting to me, I mean, it makes sense and it was expected. Okay, I fully expected him to hold out, so long as they didn't come to an agreement on a long-term deal. Was there another comment?
Oh, there is another comment, but finish your thought. We'll get to the comment
because
after.
we just started the topic, so yeah. Yeah, I expected to hold out unless a long-term deal happened, and it didn't happen. They made it sound like it came down to the wire, but I don't know about that. Why would it come to? I don't know. That's just why would it come down to the wire? Like you had all that time to do contract talks. Why does it have to come down to the wire? Why couldn't you guys have, if they really wanted to get it done, couldn't they have done it like a week before the deadline? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
let's iron this out today before fucking practice starts and everything. It's like I don't know. It sounds to me like maybe the Raiders weren't too keen on having a long-term deal with, high for one thing, high yearly
High guaranteed
salary,
money.
but guaranteed is the big thing. So I don't think they were too big on that. And like our friend Tyler said in our fantasy group chat, McDaniels is from that Patriots system where they don't pay running backs. They
Mm-hmm.
just that's the history they've had. They don't pay running backs.
They
So
don't really pay anybody, to be honest.
yeah, which would explain the Renfrow rumor from earlier. It like here and there they'll pay a top tier players. Like when they got Randy Moss, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like your Davante Adams. And then like Max Crosby, it's like no brainer, right? But other than that, I don't expect many huge contracts unless somebody really deserves it. Like in 4 years, if Tyree Wilson really deserves it, cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wasn't really getting my hopes up for a long term deal with Jacobs. I was kind of hoping for something that just was right in the middle where it worked out for Jacobs and it worked out for the team. But you run that risk with running backs if they get hurt. It's like, dude, that hurts the team a lot. To pay
Mm-hmm.
them what was reported to be possibly $12 million per year. There's a report from Dov Kleiman that the Raiders made a $12 million per year offer to Josh Jacobs. and this is per Mike Garofolo. So it's a little funny to me. Like, okay, there's a whole thing behind this. First off, who leaked this? Was this the Raiders just trying to like, oh, we tried, Raider fans, there was no need to put this out. So I'm sure, it was Mike Garofolo doing a bunch of digging. I don't know. But why do you have to put out the information that, well, I mean, we tried with Jacobs? It's just going to make Jacobs get even more upset, which he actually put out a couple of subtweets, I want to say, like today. So, it's just not smart. But $12 million a year is no chump change. That's more than what Saquon Barkley got the other day. The deadline came and passed for Saquon to get a long-term deal. And then like the next morning, he signs an updated 1-year deal with the Giants, which is just a little bit above the franchise tag number. The franchise tag is like $10.1 million. Saquon signed for like 11.2, right? There's like incentives involved, 1-year deal. Oh, cool. There's like $2.5 million signing bonus, which I don't think he would have got with the franchise tag. Okay, that makes sense to me. I would really like for the Raiders to say, oh, we should copy that and offer that to Jacobs. For all I know, maybe they did. And maybe it works. But if they actually made a $12 million per year offer to him and he said no, unless the guarantees were absolute dog shit, I don't see why he would say yes to a 1-year $11.2 million deal or whatever it is. He's probably looking for $13 million a year, and they're probably not going to give that to him.
I would take 12 if I was him, to be honest, because like a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who's like, at the top of, who's like one of the top weapons in football. I think he's making like 15 or 16 million. So it's just kind of the market of like running backs. I think, maybe a guy you can compare him to would be a little bit closer to maybe Derrick Henry, where they just, they're running straight in between the tackles, not necessarily like a gadget player. How much does Derrick Henry make per year? That's a great question. Derrick.
Yeah, you can look that up. My issue with McCaffrey and Derrick Henry are that they are older than Jacobs. Like, I think Saquon Barkley is the perfect example of where Josh Jacobs' value should be at because they're around the same age. I want to say Jacobs is a little younger, and
I think Jacobs is younger. Yeah, but I think Saquon's just a better football player, but Jacobs has proven that he can stay healthy more.
For the most, yeah. I mean, Saquon's had the big devastating injuries, but there were a few times, in previous years where Jacobs would have occasional ongoing injuries, and then missing practices, occasionally missing a game. But the reigning rushing champion, he feels he's worth quite a bit, and I don't blame him. I've said many times in this podcast that I view him as one of my favorite players, so I'm rooting for him. But like I said, my issue with comparing him to McCaffrey or Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry's towards the end of his prime, and McCaffrey is 27 when Jacobs is probably 25 right now, which is in real life, it's not a big deal or not a big difference. But in the NFL, when it comes to making contracts, it is. Because McCaffrey is probably on the second out of 3 years or whatever on his contract, whereas Jacobs is trying to move into the first year of probably a 3-year deal. So when that contract ends, he'll be 27. McCaffrey's 27 in the middle of his current contract. Like, it's just different.
Mm-hmm. This is a very interesting comment. Hefe KC says he would sign Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt and trade Josh Jacobs. If you can sign both those guys for less than what you would, sign Josh Jacobs for, just by himself, you get both of those guys. I would take both of those guys because, like, all it takes is Josh Jacobs. I mean, God forbid, it's much more risky to put all your eggs in one basket than to have them in two. And Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt would be two pretty solid baskets, I would say. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah. I somebody recently just said that maybe there's like a 85% chance that, come week 1, right before week 1, well, and now we disagree.
Okay, there are certain things I think Dalvin Cook is better at. I think he has more explosive runs, and maybe he's, I don't know, maybe a little bit more shifty, but Jacobs has younger legs and he's got a lot more left in the tank. And I also think he's the more physical runner.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious what Dalvin Cook's contract had him at this year that the Vikings decided wasn't worth it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but, he's probably going to sign with a team like the Jets and be the 1B. I just think that's where Dalvin Cook's at, whereas Jacobs is, again, defending rushing champion. Um, and he's a very hard runner, but he's also a very elusive runner. Like, I think Jacobs is a very great all around back. I think in his prime, Dalvin Cook was, and probably was slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably true. Um,
Like I
or
said,
maybe
I
I should
think
say
I
it
think
was,
Cook is
but
more explosive, but I think what happened in Minnesota is just that the Vikings have their coach and play calling system where they want a game plan against around Justin Jefferson, and I think they're looking to just be a pass first team. So they
mm,
don't really have, it's better to get rid of a player 1 year early than 1 year too late in terms of
yeah.
like the business aspect of the game.
Mm,
So I think that's why they got rid of Dalvin Cook, because they're like, Cook is just slightly better than Alexander Madison, or maybe, he's better. They just think that he's just flat out better, but they want to be able to pay a couple guys and, structure the team a little bit catered towards what their offensive scheme is going to be. Um,
yeah. I think you said uh, Dalvin Cook is more explosive than Jacobs. I think he was more explosive than Jacobs. You know,
I think
but I
we'll
don't
find out
think.
this year, because Cook would just have some plays. I know this because I had him on my fantasy team. Dalvin Cook, he would just be having a mediocre day, and then all of a sudden he would break out for like a 60-yard touchdown, and it's like, all
Yeah,
right, I had a good week out of him, and then everyone else
and
sucked, and then I was
yeah,
I was in.
and that is the thing that separates them. I'd say maybe still, but probably mostly before is that Dalvin Cook had like the breakaway speed. I don't really think Jacobs quite has that. I mean, he had that overtime run against the Seahawks, but usually otherwise he doesn't get like the big long runs where he separates from the entire defense.
Yeah,
Cook's
he's just like
contract
a. No, no, go ahead.
Cook's contract is a 5-year, $63 million deal that is fully guaranteed. His average salary is 12.6, and the contract contained a 15.5 million signing bonus. I'm assuming this is his last deal with the Vikings. That's crazy. So running backs have like depreciated. How is Saquon signing an 11.2 or whatever it was $1 million 1 year deal?
Because
That's
he
crazy.
Saquon missed like 2 years, didn't he?
Yeah, but like Saquon's better than Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you have to see the field, and it's like, I guess the team is, they're just sort of looking out for like, all right, we're gonna pay this guy. This guy's earned this money, but going forward, he might have another season where he misses time,
Yeah.
and so they don't really see the investment there. So I think they put him on a 1 year deal to just sort of cover their asses in case he doesn't stay on the field. If he does, maybe
Yeah.
they'll sign him to longer term deal. But at the same time, it's like that's another year that he gets older
Yeah.
and more
And
mileage that he
again,
has. So
yeah. And
it's kind
again,
of weird to see what's going on with the running backs. But I understand it's like you don't want to invest too heavily into one guy.
yeah. Again, it's hard to invest long term in a running back. I will give Hefe this about Dalvin Cook and Jacobs. I think if you're like looking at their primes, Dalvin Cook was absolutely the better running back if you look at it overall, right? Um, but I think like right now, like okay, if we can trade Jacobs and get something solid for him, like maybe I don't. That's the problem with the running back value nowadays. It's like a team will probably say, I don't know, I'll give you a third, and it's like I'd probably just rather keep Jacobs.
Mm-hmm. This is also, it's a very true comment. But I would say having if you do have an elite quarterback, you definitely want to have a good running back to pair up with them. Because, I mean, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you probably want a balanced offense, or unless you're
Yeah,
the Buffalo Bills.
yeah. Which I mean, that's where I would decide. Like, yeah, I'd rather have Jacobs. But again, if we can trade him and get maybe a second round pick or maybe a good defender, um, plus a pick, that's where I'd be like, yeah, let's trade Jacobs and then let's go with either. I don't think they'd sign both, but if you can get either Dalvin Cook or Kareem Hunt and pair them with Zamir White, and then you use like Amir Abdullah as like the pass catching running back, and then a little bit of Brandon Bolden. Apparently, like I'm fine with the running back by committee. That's usually what McDaniels did. So, and that's what I kind of expected last year was like 70 Jacobs, 30 Zamir White, and it ended up being 99 Jacobs and 1% everybody else. Because
Mm-hmm.
they were running him into the ground because he's at the end of his contract and they don't intend to keep him for long term. That's how I took it. So I think what they'll probably do is they'll just be like, hey, let's see what Jacobs decides to do this season. Is he gonna? It wouldn't make sense for him to hold out. We've already seen Le'Veon Bell try that, and it didn't really work for him. So all he did was lose a year of money. So I think what Jacobs has to do. I mean, really, what this comes down to is that the franchise tag just isn't beneficial for players. It really should be eradicated at some point in the collective bargaining stuff down the line. But
Yeah,
he needs to
I don't
play.
think I've never heard a player be happy after being franchise tagged, even if they're
Not,
getting like top of the line money. I think
yeah,
all the players just kind of want to have that security.
you would have to be a player that isn't a top 5 player at the position to be happy with it. But even then, you'd have to be like, well, I want a long term deal. Like, I don't want to get injured in training camp. Like we've heard 2 guys get injured today, Jalen Ramsey and Joe Burrow, which luckily Joe Burrow's wasn't. Sounds like it isn't a big deal, but Jalen Ramsey, he might be out till December. It's like
Mm-hmm.
imagine if he was out for the year and he was on a 1-year deal. It's like that completely wrecks his value,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Speaking of franchise tags, do you know one player that comes to my mind? The Niners use their franchise tag on. They actually used it on Robbie Gould a couple years ago.
No, yeah, I've seen it be used on kickers. It makes sense because you're not paying kickers that much. That's why paying or giving a running back a franchise tag makes sense to me because it's a 1-year deal, and running backs aren't getting paid that much. So it's like, oh, we don't mind paying $10 million, but it's better than 13 or 16 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, but going back to the whole Josh Jacobs thing, I really think that the situation is really, I mean, it kind of boils down to this. The Raiders are probably not in win now mode based on their current roster construction. I think they're still sort of rebuilding the team that they want to have under Josh McDaniels. So I think that they're kind of in a situation where it's like, Josh Jacobs, if we can't get you under the number that we feel comfortable getting you at, or, under the terms that we feel comfortable at, you can just sit out the season because you know what? We might just lose anyway. So if we don't have to handcuff ourselves to you, you know, uh, that's probably what they want to do.
mm,
You know, so they sort of have leverage in this situation. And Josh Jacobs, the only thing that he has leverage about is that he is going to be able to preserve himself. The Raiders won't get anything. Probably. Well, I guess the Raiders could trade him, huh?
yeah, they could theoretically trade him, but it comes down to value. And I think my thing is, again, I don't think Jacobs would sit out the entire year. Maybe he sits out.
That's
Maybe.
great.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, the Raiders right now are in win as much as you can mode.
Yeah. The
Like,
Raiders are the Raiders are in it's okay, Rocky, take your time.
yeah, I think the Raiders, in my opinion, are in a position like the Falcons were when they had Marcus Mariota at quarterback.
Yeah.
I think give it a year, maybe they can draft a guy next year, but I don't know because they might view, Garoppolo much higher than the Falcons did Marcus Mariota, and hopefully he succeeds, but we'll see. It's just in this fucking division. Good luck. But I think the Falcons can do something this year, namely because their division is kind of dog shit compared to our division. But I think they can end the entire conference is attainable in the NFC, other than the Eagles and the Niners. In my opinion, the third seed is attainable for teams like the Lions, the Falcons, the Saints, right? The Vikings. It's right there. Whereas like the Raiders, it's like, okay, we have Hefe's Chiefs. I hope we're saying your name right.
Yeah.
We
Is
have
it
the Chargers
Hefe or Jeffy? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, the Chargers, and then sneaky, like I guess you could call them sneaky scary, but just more like sneaky on paper. The Broncos. It's like everybody and their mom views all three of those teams better than the Raiders. It sucks. But we'll see. I just think they're 1 year away from hopefully making a big difference. Oh man, I would kill for it. That was one of the things I said.
Oh yeah, Chiefs in Spanish. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's Jefe. And so I've been pronouncing it right this whole time.
Makes sense.
I just wasn't sure. It's like, because you've got the picture of Mahomes. I assumed it was Jefe, but for all I know, you could be like, yeah, my name's Jeffy. I love the Kansas City Chiefs. Fuck the Raiders. Fuck the Niners. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
For all I know.
But yeah, I mean, back to Caleb Williams. I mean, I would kill for that. That was in our first episode of the podcast. I said I hope the Raiders are trying to. I mean, I'm not tank, but I hope that they can trade up to the first or second pick and get one of the top quarterbacks and just go.
And bench them for a couple years.
No,
and
like
run
I
them
said,
up the middle like a fullback.
Yeah, Trey Lance. But I want the Raiders to get a rookie quarterback that can. I'm not even asking for Mahomes. Like I'm just asking for like Kyler Murray, healthy Kyler Murray. Give me that. Give me a good defense. Maybe a team like the Chargers and the Broncos fall off, right? And then it's just hopefully the Raiders and the Chiefs, and the Raiders just need to be the 5th seed, right? And then it's like, hey, anything can happen. That's all I'm asking for. But
yeah, but
anyways.
In terms of Jacobs, I think we're ready to move on to our next topic. But real quick, we have one comment that Jefe commented earlier when you asked about Jimmy G. I just never put it up because I wanted to do it after.
Right.
So we were focusing on the running backs, but LOL, if Jimmy G stays healthy, he'll be okay.
I think he's laughing because I asked, is Jimmy G going to break out this year?
Yeah. No, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, the Vegas O-line should be better, hopefully. If not, then Jimmy, like you said, probably won't stay healthy.
Yeah, they went on a little uphill climb as the season progressed last year. They got better and better. My biggest question on this entire team is right guard, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so besides Josh Jacobs holding out, we've got another player across the bay. We're finally talking about Niner topics. We got Nick Bosa holding out. And honestly, I'm not shocked by this. I think that Nick Bosa will probably get his contract done. The Niners just typically they typically do it later in training camp for whatever reason. I think that they try to nickel and dime all their players, and the Niners have an abundance of great players. So they kind of have to be penny pinchers in terms of like preserving the cap space. But it's no shock that Nick Bosa is holding out. I'm just glad that he's being super professional about it and like quiet about it, not making it a big spectacle. I think he's going to get paid. He's the reigning defensive player of the year. He's going to get his money. This is going to be an easy one. It's not going to be like a big headache like, oh, how much are you going to be owed? Bosa's going to reset the market in terms of defensive ends. And he is in my opinion, the best pass rusher in the league. But if he's not, he's definitely top 3.
Yeah, I'll give him that. I think, well, shit. I mean, coming off a defensive play of the year, you're definitely resetting the market. I guess the tough thing is, like you said, with all the top heavy players you guys have, like a Trent Williams, I mean, basically everything other than quarterback and like offensive line minus left tackle, you have star players at every position. You just signed Javon Hargrave at D tackle for like what, $20 million a year?
I don't know the exact number, but I
I
mean,
want
you
to say it's like
definitely,
4
when it
years,
comes to
80
free
million.
agents, if they're a good free agent, you have to overpay. I mean, typically anyway, you have to overpay for players, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't
But
be shocked if that's. I think it is 20 million because I heard that it was close to the Buckner number, and they should have just
yeah,
kept Forrest Buckner. And that's no disrespect to Javon Hargrave. I like
yeah,
Buckner when he was here.
yeah. But you have a lot of top heavy positions with top heavy contracts. So it's going to start to make things difficult. I mean, like I've been saying, having Brock Purdy on this rookie contract, literally the bare minimum, essentially, that helps. But also you're paying Trey Lance quite a bit to be your number 2, or like you were hinting at, possibly number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, third overall money is quite a bit. So, I don't think they won't sign Bosa. I just think that there might be ramifications next offseason,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Niners are kind of praying that it works out with Purdy, so that way. Well, yeah. I mean, Purdy's
That
still in his rookie deal. Like they are
that could be
praying
the
for that.
ramification, though.
Yeah.
That could be the ramification is if they sign Bosa, they go into next offseason or this trade deadline, they say, well, we got to trade Trey Lance,
The Niners would have to be insane to not re-sign Bosa or trade him for several first-round picks, like a Khalil Mack type of deal.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, this. Everything about Bosa mostly reminds me of Khalil Mack,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Coming off the defensive player of the year.
Hefa says Chiefs might trade Chris Jones and then sign Bosa. Well, luckily, I think Bosa is still under contract with the Niners. So unless they trade Chris Jones to us, I don't think we need another defensive tackle. Just
Yeah.
saying. But
I don't know if they have or are at the point yet where they can, green light the 5th-year contract. I don't know if that was this past offseason or next offseason, but that seems like a given for Nick Bosa. And then you also
Bosa
have
was a rookie 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. So
this is
this
his
next
5th.
year is going to be his 5th year.
So he's on the
at the
5th
end of
year
this year,
option.
I don't think he's going to play without that new contract.
100%, but I'm just saying you can also franchise tag him. Like, he's not hitting free agency. That's just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So
PS says Bosa needs to stay. I agree. I think Bosa needs to stay. He's one of my favorite players, and
yeah,
I
well,
just love to see him get after the quarterback.
Yeah, defensive end is too primary of a position to get rid of. John Gruden and the Raiders back in the day with Khalil Mack, that's a whole different story, but it won't happen. He won't leave.
One thing I will say, I think the defense will be okay even without Nick Bosa, because in 2020, Bosa tore his ACL, and Niners had a bunch of injuries, still had like a top 5 defense. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, you're going to sign Bosa, and then it's going to be a little harder to get. Yeah, he probably will be. He probably will be.
he's easily going to be 30 plus million. I would, if I had to guess the number, I would say 33, 34 per year.
Yeah. So
with it gradually increasing. So I would say it probably starts off like a little less and then like maybe dips into like maybe even the 40s later down the
yeah, you could backload. Yeah. And
but
you could backload with a big signing bonus and he'll probably be happy.
I'm not too concerned about Bosa not being at training camp because he's one of those players. I know he's going to come in shape. He's absolutely like he's got a high motor. He wants to be great. I know he wants to be paid, and that's why he's not here. Ideally, we would want him with the team so that way other guys can learn from him. He can lead by example. And it's just always better to have the team as a unit. But I have no doubt in my mind Bosa is going to be worth the money. Whereas somebody else, like I was a little bit skeptical about the Niners re-signing Deebo Samuel when they did, because I was like, you can kind of replace receivers, and if he's going to be commanding this much money, you've got. I mean, to me, the decision was going to be between Bosa and Deebo, or that's kind of how I put it in my mind. And I would rather have Bosa back than Deebo. Although that year that Deebo was coming off of right before he got re-signed was amazing. But Deebo's kind of been inconsistent in terms of whether he comes in shape. This year he's in shape, but like I said, sometimes you just don't know. With Bosa, every year he's improved. So hopefully that doesn't change after he gets paid.
Yeah, I think last point for me is just I think you sign Bosa this mega deal, and you have other players on top of the line deals at their positions. There's going to come a point where that makes it harder to sign depth pieces in free agency. So that's when the draft's going to start to get very important again, for this team.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So before we move on to our next topic, I've got a very interesting comment from my uncle. He says, hey there, the 49ers cheerleaders only make $22.5 thousand per year. What's up with that? Time for a raise? To be honest, I didn't even know that they were paid that much. I think the Water Boys make a lot more money. I think they make twice or even more than that. But the Water Boys actually, I would say, have an effect on the game. To be completely honest, I'm surprised there's even still cheerleaders in football, because the NFL stands for the No Fun League, and just with the way that the social climate is nowadays, I'm surprised that cheerleaders haven't been like canceled, or people haven't been like kind of offended. But there are male cheerleaders, but I don't know if they're in the NFL yet, or if they ever will be.
$22,000 per year in today's
is nothing
living. That's god awful.
But you know what? 22,000. All right, 22,500. Do they only work Niner events though, and just practice on the side? Can they work another job? That's a good question. You know what I mean? It's
right,
because
it's seasonal.
If it's seasonal and they can just do it on game days, that means, all right, they only have to show up to like 9 home games a year, and then 10 or 11 if you include the preseason. So, there's also that. And then I'm sure that there's rehearsing and everything. So, I mean, it can't be less than minimum wage. Well, I mean, it could, but I don't know if anybody would want to do it for less than minimum wage, unless that was just their dream growing up.
Right. I'm just kind of reading this right here. Oh wow, dude. Yeah, this is crazy. Okay, so sometimes this is by Kristen Conti from NBC Sports Boston. Sometimes cheerleading requires arriving at games 5 hours prior to prepare for their performance, or spending 30 to 40 hours a week in practice, which I was going to say, I figure they should get paid for practicing, and that probably takes up a lot of time, but who knows? Mm-hmm. And yet, they are paid significantly less than anyone else involved at the stadium. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Surprisingly, NFL cheerleaders do not earn as much as you might think. On average, the cheerleaders earn about $150 per game.
And they have to arrive 5 hours?
Yeah.
Like and then, 5 hours before, and then so that's like a full 8 hour shift.
Yeah. And then it says literally the next sentence, this comes out to about 22.5 per year. 22.5 thousand per year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like $150 per game, like that's I don't feel like comparing to myself, but it. Yeah.
I mean, it's not enough to. I mean, especially in the Bay Area, to make a a living, but I wonder if
No.
it's different in other places where minimum wage is lower. So,
Yeah.
so okay, but
But they're
then
all
again,
big
my uncle
cities for
said,
the most part.
yeah, but like I'm thinking about like a place like Jacksonville might be like a lot cheaper, you know, to live
Yeah.
than the Bay Area.
True.
But this comment says 49er cheerleaders only make that much per year. So I don't know what that math comes out to, but
Yeah.
PS says, as reported by ESPN, NFL cheerleaders typically earn 150 per game day, and 50 to 75 for each public appearance. So yeah, I don't know how much that is per hour, but if it's 8 hours, so 150 divided by 8, I think is around 19. So 150 divided by 8, it's about 1875. Yeah. So I mean, you can
Man,
make
that's dude, like they're like professionals. They're in the NFL business. That's insane. So, I mean, what I take from this is don't let your kids be a running back and don't let your kids be a cheerleader.
yeah. Definitely don't let your kids be a cheerleader unless they really like it, but
Yeah.
they're not going to make that much money. So,
I mean, let them be a cheerleader like when they don't have to be paid for it and like they're in school, but then when they get out of school and they're like, you know what, Mom, I want to be a cheerleader. You'd be like, I'm going to show you something right here.
I'm going to show you something
that
right here.
sucks.
There's the door. Try to make a living and live on your own.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support you. You know, that kind of talk.
Yeah.
Hefe says the hot dog guy makes less money. So
Yeah. I think there are probably other people in the stadium that make less, but still, it's like not that much, you know, which is
I mean,
crazy.
still, you know, the people selling hot dogs, I mean, you could probably be like, you know, just straight out of high school or even still working in high school and probably have a job like that.
Yeah.
Maybe work night games. So it's sort of like an entry level job. But like if you're a cheerleader, that's, you know, you have to maintain your physique. You got to do all these. I mean, you don't practice handing out hot dogs. You know what I mean? You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're at home, like hot dog, and it's like, no, that's only for work. No,
Yeah,
you know,
like,
I think cheerleaders have a lot more preparation, you know, to
like
their job.
messing up your mustard. It's like it's not that hard. But I think the reason why
No pickles.
I think the reason why he said that is because the report that I read said that you know, they might have worded it as like every other job in the stadium gets paid more. So, you know, that's probably not true, but still, you know, it's low.
This is a great comment. It says, also don't let your kids get coached by Kyle. Yeah, because if they do, especially make sure that they're not like a top end draft choice, because one, he will put you in a position to fail. Two, if you're going to be a quarterback, be prepared to have great medical insurance. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
So, and also to be kind of humiliated too. But moving on, where are we? Brock Purdy struggled in his return. Like I'm just gonna say it. In 11 on 11s, I believe that he went 2 of 9 according to Grant Cohn, and he threw a pick 6. So we hadn't discussed it yet. I think last time I was sort of questioning what Brock Purdy still was going to be like with his arm, like how he was going to be able to throw a football. And based on like all the footage that was at training camp today, he looked normal, you know, in terms of like just him throwing the football. If you told me he never got injured, I would probably believe it. But he was going against the first string defense, you know, of the 49ers today. And also he hasn't been, you know, practicing. You know, he didn't participate in OTAs. He didn't do, you know, rookie minicamp, none of that stuff. I think it's just one practice. We'll see how Purdy progresses, but I do kind of have this idea that Purdy might struggle this offseason because, I mean, even Jimmy struggled against this defense. You're facing the number 1 defense in football. We'll know more when the pads go on, but I mean, 2 of 9 is not good. And you could try to, you know, cut him some slack because he's coming off that injury, but I know for a fact there's a section of the fan base that is not willing to cut that same slack for a guy like Trey Lance, and it's just, just sort of try to judge the guys on an even playing field, because I understand that Purdy also, I mean, he earned the QB1 spot this, he earned to have it going into the offseason. This is a new season. If we see that Trey is clearly playing better or Sam is clearly playing better, I don't envision Sam's going to play, better. But if we see that one of the guys is clearly running the offense a lot better, I think Kyle Shanahan owes it to himself and owes it to whoever it is to play them. Because you could argue that Brock has earned the job, and you can also argue that Trey hasn't been given the proper opportunity. I think both are true. But if Brock is going to be struggling every day, don't use last season he was just phenomenal as your only measuring stick in order to pick your starting quarterback. Because if you're always going to be thinking about the past, you're not going to be looking at what's going to give you sustainability, and you might ruin something that you might have with one of these other guys for the future.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. I do want to take it back because the other thing that we hadn't gotten to note yet, because we've been doing these podcasts every week or 2 weeks, and I think, just for reference, when the regular season comes around, I think we're going to start doing it for sure weekly, if not maybe multiple times a week. But
yes,
we haven't even got to note that Brock Purdy just got greenlit to even practice and get full. Is it full contact? Well, quarterbacks probably don't do that, but
they don't do contact in training camp. But he's fully cleared to practice. Yeah, he's fully cleared to engage in all practice activities. The only thing is that he is going to be on a pitch count. So he is going to have about, I want to say it's 2 days of throwing, 1 day off, or it might be 2 days off, I guess, depending on, how much is needed. But yeah, I guess that's what they had. John Lynch said that's what they had set, as a part of his rehab or whatever. Like, that was the plan all along. So that's what they're going to follow. But in terms of team drills and everything, he's one of the guys. It's it's go time. It's competition time. You got to be fighting to earn that spot.
Yeah. No, I think, like I've said a couple times, this is the opportunity for Trey Lance, and I think, the way I look at it is, if Brock Purdy goes out there and earns it, he actually earns it, like you said, if it's just because, last year he was so good, that's bullshit, right? But if he goes out there and he's clearly better than Trey Lance, I don't see Trey Lance getting another opportunity with the Niners unless Purdy gets hurt again, but right now, because of how Purdy's on a pitch count and whatnot, and just the fact that there's this little scent of uncertainty because of his injury and everything, and it feels like this is still a position battle for the starter, which it should be. Trey Lance has that opportunity, and that's what he deserves for sure. And the right decision should be made based off of what is seen through training camp, practice, and the preseason, and even the regular season. I mean, come week 1 or 2, there might be a different starter in week 3. You never know.
Yeah, especially knowing this team, there might be a different starter every single week.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say is Trey Lance does have a golden opportunity to really assert himself. He really needs to take it over. He really needs to come with a high energy. I heard all the quarterbacks struggled today. So it wasn't just Brock that struggled, but it seemed like nobody on the offense except for Brandon Ayuk played well. And then I think maybe Deebo Samuel, I forget. But, Trey, this is your opportunity to assert yourself. I don't care if you like Brock. I don't care if you don't like Brock. This is your career. This is your opportunity to prove to not just Kyle, but the guys in the locker room that you want this. It was understandable when you were nice, coming in like,
Well, it's
or as a
whatever's best for the
rookie.
team.
Yeah, as a rookie, going against Jimmy Garoppolo in practice, where the Niners were pretty upfront that Jimmy was going to be the guy, and they were still going to try to make a run, which I mean didn't make sense to me, but it makes sense why you would be a little bit more timid and not trying to overstep, especially because you're one of the rawest quarterback prospects to ever come out of college. I think they should have thrown you in so that way you just started getting the reps, and it would have been justified because it's like, you know what, in 2020 they didn't do very good, and they drafted you right after that season, so it would have been like, it would have been justified, like, oh, maybe you drop a couple games here, but it's no different than what it was last season. You could have gotten your reps then, but Shanahan botched that. Just to keep it a buck, he botched that, and in 2022, he used you incorrectly, and he used you as a battering ram. And now you're here. You and Brock are both healthy. This is the chance to compete in training camp. Who is going to win the job? Right? I don't buy this whole, Sam and Trey are competing for quarterback 2. I think they should all be competing for quarterback 1. And honestly, if they're all going to struggle and they're all going to be scared to make plays in training camp, then this is going to be a terrible thing for all the quarterbacks. But typically, competition is supposed to bring out the best in everybody. So I hope that Trey understands. I hope he comes with the intensity that I think that he can. And if he doesn't, and you know what, we have to go with Brock Purdy. I hope what Brock showed last season was sustainable. As Mr. Irrelevant coming in, I hope that he was just, the diamond in the rough that everybody thinks that Brock Purdy was. And I just want a Super Bowl. Okay. And not only that, I want an elite quarterback. I'm tired of the quarterback excuse. Oh, we would have won if we would have had a better quarterback. I'm tired of that. But you know what? Whose fault that is? It's Kyle Shanahan's fault. That's John Lynch's fault. That's both of their faults. Because they had opportunities to get a guy like Tom Brady a couple years ago. They had opportunities to, trade for Deshaun Watson or, use their draft capital to really go all in with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback.
Or just draft Deshaun Watson or
draft
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. No, and they didn't. And ever since then, they've been trying to play catch up. They built the roster, and now they have an established locker room, and they are trying to find a guy that fits. When typically you want to find a team that you can. I mean, you want to build a team around a guy.
Yeah, that's what I want for the Raiders. So,
and then where I get upset too is at the fact that in these training camps, Brandon Allen, the 4th string quarterback, has also been getting reps. He's been taking, I want to say Brock threw 9 passes in 11 on 11s. Trey threw like around 7 passes. Sam threw like around the same amount. And I want to say the day before it was like just barely double digits. Trey needs reps. What the hell are you worried about Brandon Allen for? If you're down to your 4th string quarterback, I'm sorry, Kyle, you can't use that fucking excuse. Dude, keep them healthy. Instead of preparing for the 4th guy to take meaningful snaps, how about you just prepare the linemen to protect the quarterback, or you prepare to call plays that won't put your quarterbacks on IR? There's no reason why Brandon Allen should be taking away reps from, meaningful reps from Trey Lance or, Sam Darnold. Especially Trey Lance, because he's the rawest quarterback prospect ever. He played 17 games in FCS.
Yep.
He has the physical abilities, but he needs the muscle memory. He needs all the throws he can get. He needs all the opportunity to excel in this offense.
Yeah.
So, in terms of Brock,
really quick.
No, go ahead.
You brought up the point of like, there's a rumor, whatever you want to call it, that Darnold and Lance are competing for the 2 job. As if Purdy's just got the number 1 job locked, which if that's the case, that's again bullshit. It should be that they should all be competing for QB 1, 2, 3, right? They should all be competing for the entire lineup. Like they should be competing to see, okay, who is our 1, who is our 2, and who's our 3.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the 4th guy is going to be on the fucking practice squad, so who gives a fuck, right?
Yeah, 4th guy's not going to make the team, but Kyle Shanahan thinks that there's a chance Brandon Allen makes the team. So who's the odd man out? Is it going to be Trey? If Brandon Allen makes it over Trey Lance, oh my God, what a disaster.
Because there's no way they can cut him like that financially. I don't think they could.
They might trade him to the Falcons.
Yeah, but again, I don't see that for the Falcons. That the Vikings make more sense to me. The Jets make more sense to me. A team with an old quarterback that's, towards the end of their contract. But the thing that I can see making sense for Shanahan, and it's not to like say that he would be right or anything, but based off of the circumstances for Trey Lance, he hasn't had much time to play in the regular season for Shanahan. And that's due to injuries and, whatever else, right? It's still peculiar to me that, he was the week 1 starter. Was that last year?
Yep. Just this past year, they're like, he's our guy.
Yeah. So it just like he is a guy like that, right? But I guess my point is, he only got a week and a half, if that, to play for the offense for Shanahan. And before that, it was like not much actual play time, So I just think if Shanahan thinks, I've seen success from Purdy in this system, and I haven't seen that from Trey Lance yet, I understand where that's coming from. But still, it needs to be a full-blown competition. It should not be, oh, this guy's clearly got the right of way to the path to number 1 because, oh, he's played and he's succeeded. It should be, yeah, he's done that, but let's see how it goes this year,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have on that.
Yeah, I just think that, oh man, you're the clear number 1 and number 2, in my opinion, the way I see it, number 1 would be Brock Purdy right now, and number 2 would be Trey Lance. Just because, 1, Brock Purdy played well in this offense just this past year. So he's earned that job for now. 2, Lance at 2, just because you've invested so much in him, and he should be your project, and you should be following through with that project. That should not have changed because you drafted him knowing that he's going to be a project. If you drafted him knowing how raw he was and you were surprised that he wasn't ready to play or that he wasn't ready to be an elite level quarterback, I'm sorry, but that's stupid, right?
Yeah.
There's no way professionals in this industry should make a monumental mistake like that. That's a fireable offense, but they haven't been fired because the team has still been successful. Any other team, the owner would have fired, whoever, because, or maybe this isn't the last chance for Kyle and John. There's no way they could miss the playoffs and they would both still have their jobs.
Most likely. I mean, maybe John Lynch gets the axe as the,
yeah, but they still have Adam Peters, and apparently Adam Peters is pretty involved. But, I digress. Yeah, I'm ready to move into what the rest of the team, is going to be doing for training camp and what to really look for. So I have a couple things that I'm really looking for, or, I had this topic kind of picked out before I knew the whole Purdy thing. But my number 1 thing to look for in camp is how Trey Lance performs. Because Trey Lance is, I would say, the most healthy of the quarterbacks, or the most intriguing because he was the one they invested in. That was the original plan before they even had Purdy. So I want to see how he does. He has the higher ceiling as a quarterback. He hasn't had as much success as Purdy, but he has the higher ceiling. So I want to see how he does, because this team has been missing that elite level talent at the quarterback position. Number two, the second thing that I want to see is how Brock Purdy's arm holds up, the remainder of training camp. I want to see, obviously he's on a pitch count, but I want to see if Brock Purdy is able to, if he has to take more time off, or if he can't make some of the throws that he was able to make last year. Like I said, today he looked fine, but dude had a serious injury on his elbow, and he had surgery to repair it. So I want to see if he's able to stand the test of time, throwing the football over the whole training camp. And another thing I want to say, it's a good thing that Purdy is cleared, because you know what? If the plan is to have Purdy for week 1, he better be getting reps with the offense. You don't just throw him in there after no offseason. And then also, I think it's a good thing for Trey to have this, Trey's got to work his ass off in order to, I mean, some people think his spot on the team is in jeopardy. I don't, but I typically think competition brings out the best in everybody. I just hope that it doesn't bring out the worst.
Yeah.
In terms of everybody being afraid to make a mistake, so they just only practice dink and dunks just to have their stats and like, oh, I made the right decision, coach, or like, I didn't turn the ball over. To me,
Right.
This is practice. You should be practicing. All right, you're getting this look against this defense. I need to see, obviously you want to make the right read, but if you're going to test something out, don't test it in a game. Do it. It's practice. And in today's NFL, you don't get that much time to practice anymore. They used to do 2-a-days. They used to have so much more time to actually, practice. Now it's just like sort of a dress rehearsal, and they kind of figure it out as the season goes on.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing about Purdy is that this is his first full off season, which technically it isn't because of his elbow injury, But, I mean, Trey Lance is the more seasoned guy, and like you said, he was the big investment, and he was a project. You would think that I just realized my mic is unplugged right now.
You've been using,
yeah. I can't believe this.
There's no way.
How do I sound now?
Hold on, make sure it's on the correct thing. So go to settings. I don't hear you at all now.
Yeah, so now I'm on my mic. This whole time.
What the hell, Mike?
Yeah, Mike loses his mic. Anyways, well, at least I didn't sound bad, hopefully.
No, I don't think you sounded bad, but we'll definitely be able to see the difference in this specific clip.
Yeah. But point being, if Trey Lance was this project, you would want to see it through. Like, why would Mr. Irrelevant change that for you? Like, again, that's the nice thing about Purdy to me is like, okay, it's never a bad thing to have multiple good quarterbacks. That is never a bad thing. Because
just ask Bill Walsh. He had 3 of them.
Right, but look at the Eagles recently. Like, they had Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts, and they traded Carson Wentz for like 2 third-round picks or something. It's like that's worth something, If you could trade a Brock Purdy for 2 third-round picks, that's a huge win considering you spent the very last pick of the 7th round for him, right? But the other thing about him is that, again, he's on a bare minimum contract, so he's not, getting in the way of anything. He's just perfect to have on the team. Trey Lance is the one that's got all the investment, yada, 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 right? Again, why wouldn't you want to see that through? Again, like you said, if they don't, it's like, yeah, that's a fireable offense. That was franchise changing what they did, that trade they made to get there, to get him,
Do you remember what I told you when that happened? I swear I had like the scene from Batman versus Superman in my head where, it was like, it was when Batman or Bruce Wayne was sitting in the Batcave, and then the Flash, was like, Bruce, You were right about everything, and then it was like the freaking nightmare scene, right?
Yeah.
I was like,
This is your
this is,
nightmare.
yeah, this is like the night, if this doesn't work out, like, I think I told you, I was like, oh, this better be good. Whoever they get, this better be fucking worth it. And you know
Yeah.
what? You know what we've got out of it so far?
Brock Purdy.
No, we've gotten 4 games out of our 3 first and a third.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah, not very good. But again, I would just, if I were the coaching staff, I'd want to see the project all the way through. So this would be the year where, to me, if I were doing a project where it's like, let's see, it's like, okay, Brock Purdy was the Mr. Irrelevant. So what if he's the backup? It's just a good backup. Like, he's still under contract for like 3 more years, so it doesn't matter if he's the backup this year. You could make him the starter next year or midway through the season if you have to, right?
You want
I
my
don't know if that
honest
makes
opinion?
sense, but go ahead.
If you're not going to start Trey, play both of them. If you're
No,
going to start Brock,
yeah.
play both of them. Have packages. Get the guy acclimated to the game, develop him that way. That's fine.
Yeah,
If you get him ready that way, that's perfect. That way, you have your chips in the Brock Purdy basket, and then also you're developing Lance along the way. And that's
you're
how it's
showing him off. And
Yeah.
you're showing him off so that he can develop trade value. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. But
I was kind of thinking that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, people will make fun of you, like, oh, haha, you drafted Taysom Hill. Better than drafting, what you're currently using him for, for a fucking, like, all right, let me hold a clipboard on the sideline with my broken ankle and crutches because my coach thinks I'm a fullback.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep saying that because the way they were using him, you could argue whether on that play it was Kyle's fault or not, but the way they were using him, he was bound to get hurt at some point. There was no way. I remember saying, well, that's a great way to get your quarterback hurt. Next play. I said it multiple times, but, after the last time that I said it, it came into fruition. I thought it was a concussion at first, by the way, because he was holding his head. But no, it was
much worse.
Well, honestly, you don't want to have concussions as a quarterback. Look at Tua, but
yeah. So what else are you looking for the Niners in training camp?
So I got my 2 points. My third one is to see how Colton McKivitz does at right tackle. Now, I don't think I've even mentioned Colton McKivitz. Maybe I have.
Probably the offensive breakdown.
Yeah, the offensive breakdown. But, he has to replace Mike McGlinchey. And honestly, Mike McGlinchey wasn't a fantastic football player. He was a solid run blocker, and he was kind of hit or miss on pass protection. And sometimes when he would miss, it would be in the most inopportune times. I think he was better than people gave him credit for. But you know how people have highlight reels? The low lights. Oh, yeah, I could pull one up. I could pull up a video if you want me to, but
yeah.
All right. But I'm definitely looking for. I'm looking forward to see if Colton McKivitz can be good, because I know he started week 7. It was either week 17, week 18 in 2021. It was a winner go home game against the Rams. And it was when the Niners were down 17-0, and they came back when Sean McVay ran in the end zone to celebrate. And Niners made the playoffs and obviously went to the NFC Championship, only to lose to that same Rams team. But I know Colton McKivitz started at left tackle in that game. And apparently, people were doing film breakdowns saying it wasn't so good, but, if you can just win football games, he might get better as the season goes along. As long as you can. Oh, there we go. As long as he isn't losing you football games, I would say, kind of the way Mike Glenchie So let's see here. There's one on. Okay. This is going to be great. All right, I'm going to share my screen. This video is hella funny. So I think Mike McGlinchey might have said something, to Grant Cohn or something, because Grant is typically was pretty critical of Mike McGlinchey. And so Grant just put together this beautiful video. It's 49ers right tackle Mike McGlinchey's signature plays of 2020. This is hilarious, dude. Can you hear the music?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, McGlinchey, if you ever watch this, but it's the music and it's what's going on. No disrespect to you as a human being. But his nickname was Mike McFloppy. There was another nickname that I saw somebody else in like a name for him, but it was Mike McFlunchy. Oh man, this is painful, Loki.
My poor quarterback. Get back here.
Oh god.
Oh, that's not good.
This is all from 2020. So he did improve after this season, I just want to say. He had a bad year in 2020, but he was better in 21. Until he got injured. And then the offense actually did even better when he wasn't on the field. Tom Compton took over. What's hilarious is he always ends up on the ground. Oh man.
Man. Well, now he's a member of the Denver Broncos, so I couldn't care less.
Oh man, did you see the way that the Broncos advertised him? Or like, hold on.
I'm assuming they're hyping him up because he was their big ticket free agent.
Hold on. You have to see this after seeing that video. Like McGlinchey Broncos. Hold on, where is it? It's got to be on Twitter. Mike McGlinchey. Oh, got it. Got it. God dang, dude. All right, so the video I found has it's East Bay Chris added sounds to it, and I'm going to play the sounds. So this is Mike McGlinchey right here.
Oh, Kylie, go. Good job, Kylie. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Wow, look at her go. Go, Kylie.
What the fuck was that?
He's just crawling up like a mountain. I don't know if they're going to use that like for, you know how there's like NBC Sports Bay Area over here. I don't know if they have like a thing over in Denver, but keep in mind that's the Mile High place. So whoever did that.
You know what they're probably doing is he's probably supposed to be climbing like up a mountain. You know, because like there's no way it's gonna come out linear like that because he just looks like a bear, like crawling, and then like he looks up and then he like keeps going. Yeah. It looks fucking stupid. Play it again. Play it again.
Okay, I get it.
Just imagine that he's an animal this time, like he's pretending to be an animal. Like he's playing dinosaur with his daughter or something.
Hold on.
Kylie, go. Good job, Kylie.
You're doing
amazing, sweetie. Wow, look at her go. Go. Oh, Kylie, go. Good.
What is it? Like, what is that?
It's just hilarious, dude.
That's the Denver Broncos.
That is the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
You know, he probably learned that from Russell Wilson, to be honest.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, like, if Hefe is still watching, which I kind of doubt, not that he shouldn't be, but just it's getting late and stuff. But for all the winning the Chiefs have done recently, the Broncos are still my least favorite team in the division.
You hear that, Hefe? Mike kind of likes you.
Well, I just can't stand the Broncos.
Okay, so my fourth training camp thing to look for, you know, for the rest of camp is whether or not Jake Moody, the third round kicker, can consistently hit field goals, because that is very important on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. And with that, I will pass it off to the Raiders, unless you have anything you want to say about, you know, the Niner training camp. But I think I touched on the main things that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't really have anything specific that I'm looking for, I guess. I mean, you mentioned right tackle. I'd be curious to see how the offensive line ships out. I'm sure most of the positions are pretty well set besides right tackle. So, yeah.
All right. So, on to the Raiders. Mike, what are you looking for, and what should people be looking for at home for these next couple weeks of training camp?
I'm actually going to start with the undrafted free agents. Just something I like to do every year. I mean, I don't. Damn.
No, just
yeah. Well, just you know, I mean, this is the time where they get to shine. You know, is training camp and specifically the preseason. And I want to admit that I made a critical error in our last show when I was breaking down the Raiders defense, you know, positions. I said that Adam Plant and George Tarlis, who are both defensive ends for the Raiders, were reserve players, like as if maybe they had been on the practice squad for.
Did we lose you?
And can you hear me?
Can you repeat that, because you cut out for a second?
Yeah. Hold on. You can hear me though, right?
I can hear you. You're just frozen.
Yeah, I am frozen. I see that. It's very beautiful frozen picture of me.
Maybe it'll come back.
For sure. We'll give it a second. I guess point being, I don't sound different, do I?
No, you sound great.
Okay. Point being, I said that they were reserve players, but they are actually undrafted free agents. So Adam Plant, George Tarlis, really all of the undrafted free agents are something that I'm looking out for. What I'm going to do really quick, I'm going to leave the studio and come back. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. I could what? Dude left without giving me instructions, but How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, I'll probably cut this out. Maybe not, because it's kind of funny. But Mike's back, and I think I can see him this time. Mike, I was definitely not stripping for the camera.
Oh, nice. Maybe
Go for it.
we'll be able to cut that and make it work.
That's what I said, but I said I might leave it in, because
yeah,
I look pretty fly.
Yeah. So just to recap, my first thing I'm looking for are the undrafted free agents. It's just something fun to look out for. Some players you don't know. I mean, I proved that last week when I was doing the defensive breakdowns. Is I didn't know who Adam Plant was. I don't know who George Tarlas is. As we get through training camp and specifically in the preseason, we'll get to know those players, and it's always fun. So all of the undrafted free agents, usually every year, especially like a team like the Raiders, one or two couple undrafted free agents tend to make the team. So I'm curious who that will be. And the Raiders had a little training camp special that they dropped on YouTube, and they had Chandler Jones come on. And they asked him, like, who's somebody under the radar that, we should look out for? And without hesitation, he said Adam Plant, who is a backup defensive end, undrafted rookie from UNLV, of all places. So he's a hometown kid.
It was Adam Plant and who else that you got wrong?
George Tarlas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so George Tarlas and Adam Plant, I want you guys to know this is the guy who got it wrong. Your position.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry about that.
This is the guy.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm looking for. Another thing I'm looking for, which probably will go more into the regular season, is how the safeties will kind of square out. The starting safeties and who the backups will be. You got Trevon Merrick, Jaquan Johnson, free agent signing, Christopher Smith, 5th-round rookie this year at free safety, as well as Azizi Hearn and Jaden Grant, who are both undrafted free agents. And then at strong safety, you got Marcus Epps, Isaiah Polamau, and Roderick Teamer. There are theories out there that Polamau may become a linebacker. We'll see.
That's Polamalu's nephew, right?
Yeah. Marcus Epps is more of like a box safety. No, that's not true. He's a good, he sounds like a solid strong safety, but he's probably more well known for run defense than pass defense, which would be the same for Isaiah Polamau for the most part. And then Roderick Teamer is like a good special teamer. So I don't know. It's just, that's a lot of safeties that could potentially make this team. So I'm curious how it shapes out and who the starters are, because I don't think any of those positions are locked. It's written in pencil, Trevon Merrick and Marcus Epps, but some players might cut into that, I feel like now that we have Marcus Peters signed, the cornerback room looks a little bit more clear, so I don't have as many questions there. Defensive tackle is something I'm looking for, in training camp. Will anybody stand out? Will anybody, specifically any young players, step up and really, show out? Like Neil Farrell, who's actually currently on the PUP list, I think. Matthew Butler, 4th-round pick from last year. Byron Young, 3rd-round pick this year. He's on the non-NFL injury list, whatever that terminology is, but he's currently injured. Well, it's not the PUP, it's like the NFI. It's like non-football injury. So he'll probably come off that soon. Nesta J. Silvera, 7th-round pick this year. And then you also have the veterans, Bilal Nichols and Jerry Tillery. Who will step up and become the starter? Will any of those guys be solid pass rushers? We'll see.
Oh, we didn't mention that last time. Was it the Raiders signed a defensive player from the Chargers, right? Or was on the...
Yeah, Isaac Rochelle, defensive end. I'd never heard of him, but he has a couple sacks in his career, so it feels like a camp body, but you never know,
I think what I'm looking for the Raiders is, first things first, if they can keep their team intact, because it kind of seems like, from the things that we mentioned earlier, like it's kind of a nasty situation of like they might lose a couple guys here. And I think the main thing is they probably want to get that team, unified. And I mean, that goes a long way, clearly, right? Like it goes without question, but like it can go from like being a season where you might have a chance at playoffs to you might have a chance at Caleb Williams. And I think knowing you might rather have Caleb Williams than a season where you just make playoffs and you're not going to win a Super Bowl.
I guess it depends on the scenario and, all that. Like, yeah, like I would, for the most part, I know this kind of sucks to probably the most people, but like for the most part, I'm always kind of thinking like forward thinking, like if losing now means that we can have 10 years of success later.
Yeah, lose now.
Yeah, like in hindsight, when 5 years from now comes, it's like I'm glad we sucked that year. It's like it was worth it. Tank for two and all this stuff, right? Tank for Andrew Luck way back in the day. So
yeah, that's why I did bad in fantasy last year. I was like, you know what, I could three-peat, but I'm just gonna lose now, so that way I can 10-peat after.
100%.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But I don't see this team being a tanking team. Like they might be bad, maybe. I think a lot of people expect them to be bad. Maybe I'm a homer, but I don't. I don't expect them to be horrible. I think they'll be competitive. I think that they will be a team worth respecting, but it might not be the respect of a team that makes the playoffs, because I don't know if they will. I don't really think they will, but I think that they can be like around 500. And that might shock some people.
So maybe they're not a tanking team yet, but one thing I will say is it'll be very telling where they're at based on what happens with the Josh Jacobs deal.
Yeah, there's that. And then, I mean, my issue is the leadership, the top of the team is at a point where they can't tank. Like that was last year, if Josh McDaniels goes out there and tanks this year, does he really keep his job? Probably shouldn't. He might, but he probably shouldn't, right? I think their most realistic shot at Caleb Williams is that the Cardinals earn the first overall pick, whether that's from themselves sucking that bad or because they have the Texans pick and the Texans suck that bad. Do the Cardinals value Kyler Murray and decide we're going to get a haul for this pick? Because if that's the case, a team like the Raiders could step up and give them that haul. And then we're talking about the Trey Lance scenario, right? But still, when it's the first overall pick and it's Caleb Williams, who's apparently a bona fide, like he's going to do it, it's worth it. It'll be worth more than what the Niners give up for Trey Lance. So, but if that's your 10 years of success, it's worth it. And I mean, that's probably the best case scenario. The best case scenario to me is we make the playoffs and can trade up to number one. But that's when you have like the 20th plus overall pick and the team that's got the first pick is like, no thanks,
It's funny that you mentioned the 10 years of success because John Lynch at one point was like, yeah, Trey is not the quarterback of, this year. He's our future quarterback. He's the guy that we're going to have over the next 10 years, right? That's how they envisioned him. I didn't know that what he meant was we're going to play him in 10 years. Yeah, he won't see the field for 10 years.
Yeah,
but
But
going back to the Raiders, the other things that I'm looking for is if their offensive line can be solid, because I look at a year like 2016 where they had a fucking stacked offensive line. And if they want to it all starts up front. It starts in the trenches. So you have to have that offensive line protecting Garoppolo. And we don't know how good Aiden O'Connell is going to be. And I don't think you're going anywhere with Brian Hoyer. But if you can if you can keep Garoppolo healthy, and if McDaniels can put Jimmy in a situation to where he can just run the offense and let the playmakers make plays, you should have success. And it all starts on that offensive line. And another thing I'm looking out for is the defense as a whole. I'm not going to pinpoint a single position. I think Marcus Peters is a good signing for the defense, but the defense as a whole has to come together and not have collapses like they did last season. If they can just play a stronger base, a stronger, like as a whole brand of defense, the Raiders will be able to squeak out more wins than they did last season.
Yeah, this isn't exactly something I'd say to look for this training camp, but I'd really like to see them sign a veteran linebacker because we have a veteran defensive end in Chandler Jones. We now have a veteran in the defensive backfield in Marcus Peters. Give me a veteran linebacker, like say maybe a Quan Alexander.
That would be a good signing for the Raiders.
I don't know if Kyle Van Noy is actually a free agent or not, but if he is, that would also be a good one. But yeah, give me somebody like that, and then you can have a veteran at each level of the defense, and then maybe that can help quite a bit, hopefully. But we'll see if it even happens. Yeah, as far as the offensive line, I agree. As the offensive line overall as a whole, but to get a little bit more specific, for starters, I'm curious where Dylan Parham's going to play. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the left guard again, but he was a natural right guard in college, and apparently he played left guard most of the season, but he played right guard a little bit here and there last season, his rookie year. Again, natural right guard out of college, right? When he played left guard, he had let's just say, because I don't have the stat, let's just say he played 14 games at right or at left guard and gave up 50 pressures. I don't know, but let's just say that. When he played right guard for 2 games, he gave up 4 pressures. It's technically speaking, he's clearly better at right guard. Why can't you just put him there, right? So maybe they go back to right guard, but we'll see as training camp goes on. I'll get the reports that say, oh, here's your offensive line lineup today for the starters: Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, Andre James. I'm curious about right guard, and then probably Jermaine Illuminor, not Jermaine open the door, so.
Yeah.
But
I swear. Oh, go ahead.
Well, just to be more specific, I'm really curious after Dylan Parham and his placement. I'm curious about the entire right side of the offensive line. I feel good about Colton Miller. If Dylan Parham's at left guard, he's getting a full NFL offseason for the first time. Hopefully he's bulked up. He's practiced a lot of left guard. Hopefully he's significantly better, maybe breaks out. And then center Andre James, I don't really have many worries with him. Just hopefully he gets it down and in tune with Jimmy G. But right guard is a complete question mark. Anybody could start there right now. Natani Muti is a guy to look out for. And then at right tackle, you have Illuminor, Thayer Munford, the 7th round pick from last year, who actually got a lot of playing time. And I think he might be the swing tackle, but we have Brandon Parker back again, who is kind of also a swing tackle. So I'm curious how that'll shape out. And then there's also Dalton Wagner, undrafted free agent, who I would kind of expect to be a practice squad guy who they hope to develop over the next year. And then maybe next year he becomes the backup right tackle or maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see how right tackle and specifically right guard shapes out. What were you going to say?
No, I was just, this is kind of unrelated, but I swear I have undiagnosed ADHD or something, dude. Because or I just have strong associative memory. Because when you mentioned that there was a name. His name was Neil, I think.
Farrell.
Neil Farrell. And as soon as you said that, I was I just got Doodle Bob in my mind. Neil Foygan.
Nehoiman.
No, and then when you said Kyle Van Noy, I was like, Van Noy. I just started thinking about Doodle Bob. I don't know why, but
Yeah, no, I
it's
don't
just the way
blame
my
you.
brain works. Maybe I just need some freaking Adderall.
Well, something was said earlier in this podcast where I just kind of like looked to the side, like thinking about something, but I don't remember what the context was, but I was thinking of something funny.
Mm-hmm.
So, a few more things to look out for. Just one player, Aiden O'Connell. I'm just curious. I think this team really believes in him. Like, I don't think they believe he could be their starter, but or at least not right now. But he might be the type of guy that could go out there and shock people and be the next. I shouldn't say this, but Brock Purdy. Like you never know. I'm very curious. So curious to see how he does. I think he's going to end up being the QB2, and Brian Hoyer's not going to make this team. I think he's only here to help implement the offense for Jimmy G and probably even more so for Aiden O'Connell.
You don't think they keep 3?
I don't see why they would. Why keep why keep Brian Hoyer's skeletons when you can keep an extra running back if Josh Jacobs is questionable, an extra wide receiver because it's a deep room, an extra offensive tackle, offensive guard, an extra defensive tackle, defensive end, corner, a special teamer, So I don't see it, but they might. If everybody's saying, I don't expect Brian Hoyer to throw many passes like in the preseason, why would you have him in the regular season? Other than to hold a clipboard, if that's worth it to you, then okay. But
no, you're right. You're right. Because honestly, at that point, if Jimmy gets hurt and then Aiden O'Connell gets hurt, at that point, you might as well just tank for Caleb Williams because you're gonna need another guy.
Yeah, and also, another thing they could do, I think theoretically, is they changed the rules during COVID where the practice squad can have veterans. So it's possible that they could put Brian Hoyer on the practice squad, but I don't know if that's for sure. So anyways, I guess another singular player would be Zamir White. I'm curious to see how he does. If Josh Jacobs is going to be out this whole time, is he going to get a lot of use, in training camp, preseason? Will they start to plan for Zamir White as the, lead back in a committee? We'll see. And then 2 more positions. Tight end. I'm really curious how that'll shape out. I saw a tweet from, again, Tristan Kuhn. Maybe I'll call him Kun. I don't know. I'm going to go with Kun. Tristan Kun, who says
I would assume it's pronounced the other way, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Unless he corrects me.
Yeah, unless he corrects you or you see it pronounced, otherwise on like another thing.
Yeah. Again, it's Tristen, Tristan, Kuhn. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, he's a very good follow for Raider fans at KUHNTRISTEN. He tweeted that Raiders veteran tight end Jesper Horsted is up to 246 pounds after playing last year at 233. So bulked up. This was a guy in the offensive breakdowns that I said I could see him, making this team over a guy like OJ Howard, which is, former first-round pick with a somewhat biggish name. So I'm
assuming if he bulked up, he's going to be like if you
blocking.
run a 2 tight end set, he's going to be a blocker, or maybe you could just bring him in and like typically on a goal line formation, you'd want an extra lineman, but he could be the tight end also in that formation. So
yeah, like I said, you have the swing tackles. You could bring in Thayer Munford or Brandon Parker or a guy like Horsted maybe. I think early on, it's going to be all Austin Hooper, and they're going to be developing Michael Mayer. He'll get on the field for sure because he's too talented to not. But there will be points, I think, where Horsted gets on the field, and then maybe mid-season, Michael Mayer starts to really get a feel for it, and then it's like, oh, he's starting to take over,
Mm-hmm.
But, the tight end room is interesting to me. And then lastly, linebacker. Other than right guard, that's the biggest question to me. I've heard nothing but good things about Davante Adams this offseason. I think he was another guy that bulked up quite a bit. I think he's going to be the one with the green dot. So I'm going to be really watching out for Davante Adams. But also, who are going to be the backups at the linebacker positions? Is Luke Masterson going to keep his roster spot? He was an undrafted free agent last year. Or will an undrafted free agent this year, Drake Thomas, take his spot? Or take Darian Butler's spot? You also have Amari Burney, who we drafted in the 6th round this year. So a lot of options, a lot of young linebackers. And again, I'd like to see a veteran get added, but we'll see. And that's really it for me for what I'm looking for, other than hopefully consistent growth,
Now, one thing, that sort of involves training camp and that is a great opportunity for you and I to really discuss how, both teams can kind of come together and make each other better is the Raiders and the 49ers are going to be holding joint practices. So the Raiders will be hosting the 49ers. I'm going to pull this up so I get the correct dates. Here's when the 49ers and Raiders will hold joint practices. San Francisco will be headed to Las Vegas for some early joint sessions on August 10th and 11th. And then, so like we said, it's going to be in Henderson, Nevada. So it's going to be over, the Raiders are hosting. And they play each other for, I believe, their, the first preseason game, right, Mike?
Yeah. Week 1 of the preseason.
Week 1 of the preseason on August 13th, and that is creeping up on us, dude. Like, Mike.
So I wish that we could have filmed our literal reactions, because before we started this pod, we wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit, and like what we were going to talk about tonight and all that. And we looked up the date just to get it, and we were like, wait, that's 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense. How is it that
soon? Football is upon us. We've been waiting, but it is
the 13th.
The 13th is the game.
So we're on that red dot, and my finger is under the 13 right there. So, like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 days away. It's just barely over 2 weeks away.
Now, what I'm looking for out of this game is, honestly, I want to see, no offense, but I think the Raiders could be a good defense for a guy like Trey Lance to get reps. I don't expect Purdy to play.
Hell no.
Yeah, I don't expect Purdy to play. They don't want to risk him getting hurt. But I think it's a perfect game to sort of get a feel for what Trey Lance could be, at his current state right now with his refined mechanics against a defense that is by no means a top-tier defense in the league. No offense, like I said. It's going to be valuable reps. I think, honestly, they should just go Lance and Darnold. And honestly, Lance needs the reps. He needs the game experience. And if he's not going to be your starter week 1, unless Lance goes out and balls out and you think there's a chance that he might start week 1, don't yank him. Let him play.
Really? Man, I feel like that happens, and there comes a point in the game where you go, please pull him, because you don't want him to get hurt.
Okay, but here's the thing. If he's struggling, let him play.
100%.
He's there to get better. Or if he's struggling so bad to where it's like, you know what, he might not make the team, yank his ass out and play Darnold.
Yeah,
and then
but
play,
if he plays 2 drives,
the 4th string, Brandon Allen.
Yeah, if he plays 2 drives and he leads 2 touchdown drives, pull him.
Oh yeah, like I said, if he plays well and you think there's a chance that he might start week 1, just then pull him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he needs reps. He needs playing time. And if he's not going to see the field in the regular season, he better be seeing it in the preseason.
Yep.
Because that's the only chance you get where it's not going to count against your record. And I think it will be a good matchup. I think the Raiders are the perfect team to have as the first preseason game because, like I said, the difficulty of the defense isn't going to be so intense. And, it's like when you dip your feet into a swimming pool, you go in gradually. But also, the Raiders are the team that kind of set back Trey Lance's rookie year. So there's a little bit of a mental aspect to it, I think, a little bit. Lance broke his finger. There's always subconscious stuff. The Niners didn't draft Justin Fields, and Justin Fields, for whatever reason, holds that against the Niners. So I'm sure Trey Lance, it's maybe he might. I mean, just use it as a chip on your shoulder to play better. Come on,
maybe. I get
take what you can get. Where I think they might have gone with a 2-quarterback system had Lance not broken his finger against the Raiders.
Possibly.
Because Lance was subbing in the Lions game week 1, but I think it was just like I said, it was hard for him to grip a football.
Yeah, I'm obviously hyped for this preseason game. My thing about playing the defense, you're going to be facing backups. The first week of the preseason, you shouldn't be playing starters. So, I get what you're saying about the defense not being that good, and I agree. But you could have played the Buffalo Bills. You might face a better system. You might face more disciplined players, but most of those players are backups or rookies that you're going to be facing. So, I don't think the level of the defense matters that much. I don't expect the Raiders to be going up there and being like, oh, man, we're going to face the toughest defense in the league. It's well, you're facing their backups, Maybe on the first drive you might face them, but,
Is there an echo real quick?
No. Is there one for you?
No, my AirPods died. So I've got it on the speaker right behind me.
Gotcha.
But honestly, the Raiders can take this game sort of as a measuring stick. I don't think that you're going to face a defense that's tougher, all year long. And then, that's assuming that there's even defensive players, starters that play. But still, the Niners have a lot of depth. So this could be a measuring stick game to kind of see where you're at.
Yeah, that's the thing about the preseason.
Even the practices.
Yeah,
the practices are going to be more important than the game.
Yes, the joint practices are way more important. That's the thing, because you're actually going to see starters on starters, which you're not going to see in the preseason game. So I'm hyped for the preseason game because, I want to see undrafted free agents. I want to see the rookies. I want to see all these players that I don't know and kind of gauge them and actually get my own opinion on them. That's what I'm excited for. But also, it's going to be great for us, great content. It's going to be we could talk about the entire game. We could play clips from the game. It's going to be fun, and the training camp practices that they prepared up.
We're going to have a ton to talk about, probably.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm excited.
Everybody watching at home, stay tuned for that. But
yeah,
honestly, I'm mainly excited for football to be back. And what greater team to have, practice with one another than the Raiders and the 49ers, especially at this time of year where we could have started the podcast last year and the New Year's Day, but honestly, I'm not mad at the timing where we started, doing these videos and everything. Honestly, it's going to be great. We're going to have a ton to talk about, give our perspectives. Maybe we go a little bit more in depth on the matchups or, just kind of, we'll see as we get there, but I'm mainly interested in seeing how is Lance going to do against another defense? Because the last time I did, I saw him break his leg.
Yeah, no, it's been a while for you, so I would expect you to see a lot of him come 2 weeks from now.
Mhm. But anything else that you want to, mention about the Raiders and 49ers practices?
No, I just we'll have to keep close tabs on them. Try to find as many videos as we can to watch. All that.
Mhm. Yeah. Honestly, I foresee Jimmy throwing a couple picks because he would always do that in training camp. It's like a ritual. I think he's gonna
Yeah,
look for Fred Warner on the field and is like, "Hey, Fred, you remember when you used to do this?" And then just throw a pick.
yeah. I mean, here's my thing about like training camp as a whole. Like, for one thing, if they're not wearing pads, I don't really give a fuck. Um, and maybe the Niners are wearing pads today, but like the Raiders haven't been wearing pads
No,
yet.
no, no. The Niners start wearing pads Monday.
Yeah, so like, uh, there's not much to take from that. It's like once they start actually like bodying up and like hitting each other, that's when it's like, okay, let's really see.
Yeah, that's when it's
But
for real.
yeah, but even then, it's like at least in the quarterback's head, you got to be thinking like, well, this doesn't lose me a game if I go out there and throw a ball that's like really close, like a really close call that might get picked. Like I think in practice, quarterbacks should throw throws that are a little dicey, just to kind of get a little feel and all that. So I don't really take much from like stats from practice, but it's nice to see, and it's interesting to see for sure. But you know, I care more about the preseason games, and I obviously care the most about who makes the team and how the regular season goes. But practices and all that, yeah, I'm always going to be curious, but it's hard to really gauge what it means when somebody says, "Oh, today Brock Purdy threw a pick six." It's like, okay, well, was it a horrible pass or was it like him just trying to dice somebody or like try to really thread the needle and it didn't work out,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but I think that pretty much wraps us up on our final topic. It was a good show, huh, Mike?
I think it was, yeah. Once again, a long one, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as the other ones. It was
No,
almost as
it
bad as the
wasn't.
second to last one, but I think we took a lot of questions too,
Yeah, yeah,
which is good. We
yeah,
love your guys' questions, and we don't mind going longer when it has to do with comments. So,
yeah, 100%.
but anything else that you wanna say? No.
Just well, how do we do it? Like you say God bless America, then I
Yeah, uh, I was like, God bless America, and you were like, God bless the Raiders and the Niners, and then it cut.
yeah, it was funny. It would be funny if we had like every episode like the same thing that we say,
Mm-hmm.
like sayonara, and don't forget to. I was gonna try to say something funny, but I don't want to say something stupid.
No, come on, say something stupid. It'll be great.
I'm too tired.
Yeah. No, it's time. It's time for bed. Everybody, thank you for checking out the video. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Honestly, it's been great to get your guys' comments on the live stream. And Hefe KC, you're I believe a first time commenter. Uh, well, you're not our first commenter, but this is the first time we've noticed you comment on one of our videos. So we appreciate the back and forth that we have, and I'm glad that you weren't just just a troll. We actually had some good back and forth in there. So as for everybody else, feel free to check out our live streams. We're going to be doing them a little bit more often as the season starts to come along. We're thinking at least once a week, by the time the regular season is upon us. But, without further ado, I hope everybody has a great night and tune in to, the clips if you missed any of the show, and, tune in to future live streams. So thank you so much. Have a good night.